HPV vaccinations will be recorded on UWIN platform, and vaccine stocks and logistics will be managed and monitored through eWIN system. The HPV vaccination is entirely voluntary, and parental consent is a must to align with the community value systems. Transparency and countering misinformation and overcoming hesitancy by underscoring the long-term benefits of the youth of the country is another key component of this campaign. However, we need to remember that vaccination alone will not suffice to eliminate cervical cancer. Screening and awareness must continue. So a comprehensive strategy integrating vaccination, screening, and timely treatment offers the most efficacious path forward. By aligning our national efforts with global cervical cancer elimination goals, we are not just providing medical intervention, we are securing the core resilience of our society. Together, let us protect our future generations, uphold the dignity of our women, and succeed in our fight against cervical cancer. Thank you very much for giving me a patient here. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Nada, and once again for your leadership and time. And WHO looks forward to supporting you on this journey. Now to South Africa. I referred earlier to President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address last month, in which he announced plans for a massive rollout of lenacapavir. In the same speech, he also committed to ensuring every girl between 9 and 14 receives an HPV vaccine. WHO is supporting South Africa to develop a comprehensive national strategy for cervical cancer elimination. To say more, I'm delighted to welcome South Africa's Minister of Health, Minister Aaron Mashwaledi. Dr. Mashwaledi, thank you for making time to join us today, and you have the floor.
Yes, good day, Excellency, the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, my colleague, the Minister of Health from India, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity. Cervical cancer is preventable through the vaccination of girls between the ages of 9 and 15 years, preferably prior to sexual debut. It is also curable if detected early, yet it remains the leading cause of cancer death among South African women, with over 11,000 cases and nearly 6,000 deaths annually. Given such a high rate of mortality and morbidity, South Africa will strengthen and accelerate the implementation of the strategy for the elimination of cervical cancer for South Africa. As the Director General has already said, the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, has elevated this program as highlighted in the State of the Nation address when he stated South Africa will achieve this noble objective of eliminating cervical cancer. In the next few weeks to come, we will officially launch a campaign for elimination of cervical cancer using the global strategy adopted by the World Health Organization with a target of 90-70-90. In South Africa, I used to mention that we are already very lucky. Noting the severity of this disease, we started as far back as 2014 to vaccinate young girls for HPV between the ages of 9 and 15 at schools throughout the Republic of South Africa. We have up to so far reached 6 million school girls. We are very grateful for the report or the conclusion of the WHO that one dose is enough, because we're giving 2 doses every year since 2014, one in September, one in February, and the second one in October every year. We are very grateful to start the 1 dose vaccination campaign because of shortage of money. We were only targeting public schools in the Republic. We have taken a decision that now will go to even private schools and independent schools to reach more girls because now we've got more doses. So we have already started in our TV adverts around the country to announce our decision for the campaign to eliminate cervical cancer. Now, when we launch this program, we are going to put emphasis on the middle 70 and the last 90, which we know are very difficult. That's why we are going to put a lot of focus on the first 90 to make sure that we reach as many young girls as possible. We are so serious about this program that we've decided that the launch must be headed by the president himself. In other words, it's no longer the Minister of Health who is going to launch this campaign to end cervical cancer. It will be the president himself. So we are just waiting for a suitable date from the president. That's why I'm saying in the next few coming weeks, we'll be launching the campaign. We'll very much appreciate the help and support of WHO. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Mashwaledi.
And unfortunately, DG, my apologies. I am today chairing a very important meeting of all the 9 health MECs or provincial ministers of health in our province, together with South African Local Government Association and South African Military Health Services. It is a statutory meeting for the country, and so I'll be asking to be released because I have just asked to be excused for a short time to come and attend this press conference. If you agree, DG, may I be released now, or if there are any questions which we need to answer, we'll answer them. But I will leave my advisor, Dr. Nonusi Milela, looking in to answer any questions, DG, if you agree.
Thank you. I know your busy schedule. We're actually very grateful that you joined us despite your busy schedule. So thank you so much. And I think Dr. Nono can address the questions if there are questions to ask. But we're very grateful, and congratulations for your progress on cervical cancer. And we are here to support you, and you have our full support. And the same also to Minister Nada, to India. Congratulations, like South Africa, for your progress. And we assure you that you have our full support. But we're very happy that progress is happening in the elimination of cervical cancer, which is a very important initiative that we started together, as you remember, some years ago. So thank you so much again. So I appreciate your leadership again, Your Excellencies. Thank you so much for joining us, to both Minister Nada and Minister Mashwaledi. Finally, WHO is deeply concerned about the conflict in the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Middle East, with 16 countries affected. So far, almost 1,000 deaths have been reported in Iran, 50 in Lebanon, 13 in Israel, and 11 in other Gulf countries. In addition, WHO has verified 13 attacks on healthcare in Iran and 1 in Lebanon. Under international humanitarian law, healthcare must be protected and not attacked. The conflict is also causing significant displacement. So far, an estimated 100,000 people have left Iran, and in Lebanon, more than 60,000 people have been displaced, and at least 1 million people may be on the move following evacuation orders in the south. The threat of nuclear facilities being impacted is also concerning. Any compromise to nuclear safety could have serious public health consequences. WHO is working closely with our offices in the affected countries to monitor the impact on the delivery of health services and provide support when needed and requested. But the impact goes beyond the immediately affected countries. Operations at WHO's logistics hub for global health emergencies in Dubai are currently on hold due to insecurity. To say more, I'm pleased to welcome WHO's Regional Director for the Eastern Mediterranean, Dr. Hanan Belghi. Dr. Belghi, thank you for joining us at this difficult time for the region, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Dear Director General, dear Excellencies, Ministers of Health, and dear colleagues, the situation across the Eastern Mediterranean is indeed escalating rapidly, with serious consequences for civilians and health systems. Across the region, more than 1,000 people have reportedly been killed and 7,000 injured. One of our most serious concerns is attacks on healthcare. In the past week, WHO has verified 13 attacks on healthcare in the Islamic Republic of Iran and one in Lebanon. In Lebanon, evacuation orders have forced the closure of 43 primary healthcare centers and 2 hospitals. Violence has also affected the first responders, with paramedics killed and injured. At all times and in all places, health workers, patients, and health facilities must be protected, even in war. Last year, WHO's Global Health Emergencies logistic hub in Dubai fulfilled more than 500 emergency orders for 75 countries across all 6 WHO regions. However, humanitarian health supply chains are now being jeopardized. The hub's operations are temporarily on hold due to insecurity, airspace closures, and restrictions affecting access through the Strait of Hormuz. This disruption is preventing access to $18 million in humanitarian health supplies, while another $8 million in shipments cannot reach the hub. More than 50 emergency supply requests from 25 countries are currently affected, and $6 million in medicines for Gaza and $1.6 million in polio laboratory supplies are also held up. Half of global humanitarian needs are concentrated in the Eastern Mediterranean region. We are coordinating the health response across affected countries, supporting ministries of health and partners to sustain essential services, as well as strengthening disease surveillance and preparing for potential mass casualties and displacement. WHO is also repositioning trauma supplies and essential medicines, supporting countries to maintain critical public health functions, as well as scaling readiness for chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear risks. Yet our emergency operations across the region currently face a 70% funding gap. Without urgent financial support, essential services will cease and preventable suffering will deepen. However, WHO remains committed to doing all we can for the people of this region and all regions of the WHO. Thank you very much, and back over to you, Dr. Tedros.
Thank you, Dr. Belghi, and thank you for your leadership at this critical time. As always, the best medicine is peace. And Christian, back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tedros, and honorable ministers, as well as our regional director. I think you understood that Minister
Αυτός. next Kaloshimalo. Ora. καλύτερα κάπως έχει να κάνει με προετοιμασία του κόσμου, για τα κατάφυγια όλα αυτά. Εντάξει, σε ένα ρόλο, καταλαβαίνετε, συγχρονισμένοι όλοι οι άνθρωποι των Σελήνες. Τα λέω αυτά είναι οι Σελήνες εδώ μόνο βάσεις, υπάρχουν άλλους Σελήνες. Ακούγονται λίγο εδώ στο δεχτήρι, πάνε δηλαδή οι Σελήνες στη Λεμεσό, έτσι. Μόνο. Έτσι. Ίσως και να μην τα εξελέξει σωστά καλά.
At our department, we're doing it by restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding our military to historic levels, and reestablishing deterrence in this hemisphere and around the world. For too long, leaders in Washington and their foreign policy functionaries abandoned the simple wisdom of the Monroe Doctrine. They were consumed with the United States only going abroad. They ignored the warnings of President John Quincy Adams, who said that if our nation went overseas only in search of monsters to destroy, that we would cease to be the ruler of our own spirit and our own backyard. Under previous leaders, we grew obsessed with every other theater and every other border in the world except our own. These elites reduced our power and presence in this hemisphere, opting for a benign neglect that was anything but benign. In your countries, many leaders accepted the status quo to coexist with narco-terrorism, or for law enforcement approach, for a law enforcement that failed to deter and dismantle threats. Same happened in our country under the previous administration. And the result of this collective neglect was fatal. More than 1 million Americans were killed by fentanyl, cocaine, and other drugs. Numbers greater than any casualties we've sustained in war. Millions of illegal aliens invaded our borders and destabilized nations across the hemisphere. Under Joe Biden's administration, the human smuggling industry exploded by more than 2,000%, from a $500 million so-called industry in 2018 to $13 billion by 2022. Cartels of terrorists across our hemisphere, enabled by adversaries, created and profited from chaos. What creates chaos? No leadership creates chaos. In our nation, narco-terrorist groups like Tren de Aragua prospered. They raped, they poisoned, they murdered innocent Americans. They terrorized our cities, our towns, and our neighborhoods like they do yours. Across this region, these gangsters control and terrorize large swaths of your territories, kill thousands of your people, and promote chaos that makes normal life sometimes almost impossible. Crime spiked massively. Our hemisphere has 1/8 of the population, yet 1/3 of the violent crime. There's a reason for that. America's retreat from protecting its citizens and the complacency of many neighbors in this hemisphere was a great betrayal. That's what it was, a great betrayal against our people and our nations. Well, President Trump recognizes the wisdom of the Monroe Doctrine, and the days of us betraying and endangering our own citizens are finished. President Trump has reestablished the Monroe Doctrine, the Trump corollary of the Monroe Doctrine, or if you'd like, for short, you can just call it the Donroe Doctrine. Under President Trump, securing America's interest in the Western Hemisphere and keeping our homeland safe are our top national security priorities. The President's historic national defense strategy ensures that the Department of War will prioritize resources around the threats and objectives that are core to homeland defense and the people and prosperity of the American people. And to start, the Department of War is once again defending our borders as a priority of our national defense. With our law enforcement partners, we are defending our borders and making our streets safe again. Crossings at our southern border, at the U.S.-Mexico border, have dropped to the lowest number in history. Murders nationwide have plummeted by more than 20%. We now have operational control of our southern border. 0 people are crossing our southern border. We will not rest until we have complete operational control of every inch of all of our borders. So it starts with us. We're addressing it, but we're not stopping there. Under President Trump, for the first time in history, the Department of War is on the offense against narco-terrorists as well. I should back up a step, though. In order to get 100% operational control of our border, we didn't just look at Border Patrol and say, that's your job. It's a law enforcement function. We deployed the United States military. Right now, the Division Command of the 101st Airborne is in operational control of the southern border. We ensured that the most capable assets we had in our country were deployed to our own border to defend that border against the narco-terrorists and drug dealers seeking to enter our country, not treating it simply as a law enforcement function, working with our partners, but recognizing it's a core military function. But going on offense with Operation Southern Spear has restored deterrence against the narco-terrorist cartels that profited from poisoning Americans. Last month, we went a few weeks without targeting a single boat. Why? Well, because we couldn't find a whole lot of boats to sink. And that's the whole point, is to establish deterrence from narco-terrorists who have been able to traffic almost unfettered. And if the consequence was simply to be arrested and then released, well, that's a consequence they'd already priced in a long time ago. A new dynamic had to be put in motion in order for their decision cycle to change. And when adversaries are forced to move out of comfortable positions, as you know, as military men and women, they're more vulnerable when they're moving in a different direction, which is also the point. Drug overdoses that kill our citizens have dropped. Flows of fentanyl, a weapon of mass destruction, are down 56%. We will continue to destroy these threats. In January, U.S. forces raided and arrested the most dangerous house and the most dangerous compound inside the most fortified fort in the capital city of Caracas, of two indicted individuals, Nicolas Maduro and his wife, fugitives of U.S. law. Operation Absolute Resolve showed the bravery of America's best, our warfighters. Nobody can do what the United States of America can do. It's not even close. President Trump has shown what is possible when you reject the status quo delusion that threats to our homeland and our hemisphere are somehow secondary. America is prepared to take on these threats and go on the offense alone if necessary. However, it is our preference, and it is the goal of this conference, that in the interest of this neighborhood, we all do it together with you, with our neighbors and with our allies who are eager and willing and capable. To do this, to work together, we must first acknowledge what was lost and then understand what needs to be restored. All the nations represented in this room are offsprings of Western civilization. Our nations are and always will be united by our heritage, our history, and geography in this new world. We share the same interests. And because of this, we face an essential test. Whether our nations will be and remain Western nations with distinct characteristics, Christian nations under God. Proud of our shared heritage with strong borders and prosperous people ruled not by violence and chaos, but by law, order, and common sense. Or whether we are permanently torn apart by something else, led astray by competing forces, radical narco-communism and anarcho-tyranny, which threaten our people, borders, and sovereign lands in the name of a false sovereignty or a false peace. Uncontrolled mass migration, which overwhelms domestic resources intended for deserving citizens and drives unchecked crime and unchecked violence. Or the belief in so-called globalism that seeks to erase our distinct national identities in the name of tolerance, erase our borders in the name of compassion, and erase our warrior ethos and that which makes us strong in the name of so-called diversity and political correctness. One of the dumbest phrases in military history, which used to be echoed from the former Defense Department in the previous administration, they would say it over and over and over again, was our diversity is our strength. It's the single dumbest phrase in military history. Because what is our strength is our unity. Our strength is in our shared purpose, in the training we do together, the capabilities we have to do, we can do together. In our context, the Constitution we swear an oath to defend together, the uniform we wear together. That is our strength. We reject other notions and offer a new choice. We must defend our national interest and restore our national identities. Otherwise, the outcome is the same. Our hemisphere will be poorer, more dangerous, and weaker. This matters not because we seek to preach to you about culture wars or ideologies, or to tell you how to run your countries. We're not here to tell you how to run your countries. Instead, it matters how we assess the threats facing us and the choices that we make on how to overcome them, that is what will define our destiny. President Trump understands that today's threats to border security and key terrain in our hemisphere are existential questions for our nation and for all of yours. When adversaries conduct incursions in this hemisphere, off the coast of a U.S. state, Alaska, or off the coast of Greenland, or in the Gulf of America, or the Caribbean, that is a direct threat to the United States homeland and to peace in this hemisphere. When adversaries control ports or infrastructure along strategic choke points for U.S. and hemispheric trade, such as the Panama Canal, or install military facilities just miles off our shore, that is a threat to the United States homeland and peace to this hemisphere. When terrorist killers and cartels capture strategic infrastructure, resources, and entire towns or cities close to U.S. borders and U.S. shores, or profit from mass illegal migration, that is a threat to the United States homeland and a threat to all of you as well, to the Americas. The same adversaries that threaten our shared heritage threaten our shared geography as well. They seek to displace the historic North-South relationship that we've always shared with some sort of a new global South that excludes the United States and other Western nations, but includes non-Western powers and other adversaries. The answer to our challenge is not to ignore our geography in the name of global interests, but to embrace our shared geography in the name of national interests. That is why President Trump has drawn a new strategic map from Greenland to the Gulf of America to the Panama Canal and its surrounding countries. At the Department of War, we call this strategic map the Greater North America. Why? Because every sovereign nation and territory north of the equator, from Greenland to Ecuador and from Alaska to Guyana, is not part of the global South. It is our immediate security perimeter in this great neighborhood that we all live in. Each one of these countries border either the North Atlantic or the North Pacific. Each one of these countries sits north of the two basic geographic barriers that exist in this region, the Amazon and the Andes Mountains. This is basic geography that we don't teach in schools as much as we should. And it restores our North-South relations, and we must get it right. In the North, the United States must enhance posture and presence in cooperation with you and our sovereign partners to defend our shared immediate security perimeter. In the South, meaning south of the equator, the other side of this great neighborhood, we will strengthen partnerships through increased burden sharing. This will enable you to take a greater role to defend the South Atlantic and the South Pacific, and to secure critical infrastructure and resources in partnership with us and other Western nations. This is what we did in World War II, just like we sunk ships with torpedoes in World War II. At the Department of War, we called it the quarter sphere defense. And we will do this again. If we're serious about our national security, and if we prioritize geography, business as usual will not stand. This means that for every country in this hemisphere, border security must be your top priority. Border security is national security. President Trump said it when he first started to run. You're not a country if you don't have borders, and he's right. President Trump sealed our border by directing the military to mobilize resources and personnel to stop invasion by cartels and other criminal actors. You can do this as well, and many of you have. This also means that you too can and must go on the offense against narco-terrorists. We've had great collaboration with many countries in recent months, and I want to thank every country in this room that has supported our access to find, fix, and finish cartel targets. We have only just begun to work with you. More must be done by you and by us to target narco-terrorist groups across all domains. We will dismantle narco-terrorist networks in this hemisphere, and we will deny access to the state adversaries who support them. We will correct the mistakes of the past, the mistakes of the so-called global South. I want to thank General Donovan who has been an excellent partner and a great new leader here at Southern Command. One of the great mistakes of the past was that our leaders didn't provide the U.S. Southern Command with the support that it needed. It was a command chock full of lawyers and social workers and NGOs, law enforcement. That's changing. General, I'm directing my team to correct these historic failures, to ensure that your command has the resources and staff that you need for this robust mission ahead. It's the least we can do. I want to, absolutely, thank you. It's about time. But it's not just us at the Department of War, and it's not just Southern Command. This is across the Trump administration. This is across the Department of War as well. Stephen Miller, thank you for your support and your leadership, for your clarity, understanding why this matters to each American citizen, and why the War Department is central to ensuring that it happens. It doesn't happen without President Trump, and it doesn't happen without your clarity and your leadership. I want to thank General Nordhaus as well for your support at every level. There's so many to thank. I see Corey Lewandowski here from the Department of Homeland Security. It doesn't happen without the Department of Homeland Security. Of course, Joseph Humeyer, the other part of the new bromance between him and General Donovan. Eric Garrissey, who from day one in my office, he was my first sergeant in Iraq. He's one of my senior advisors. Day one, he worked at Southcom for a long time, said, we need to be focused on the cartel threat. And he built a team to help put us in that direction, a lot of which manifests to this day. Patrick Weaver, Phil Hegseth, who I happen to know, and Ricky Berea, my chief, for doing a great job putting this together. Tony Salisbury, thank you. So many folks that every single day in Washington, I hope you know, are working hard to run as fast as you are, to stand alongside you in this mission. This is not a conference with flags, so we can pat ourselves on the back.
Good morning.
I can tell you that
Welcome to the America's Counter-Cartel Conference,
objective, he'd kick me out of his
hosted by
office.
the Secretary of War, the
This
Honorable
is an operational
Pete Hegseth,
conference
and the Commander
to
of the
bring our
United
countries
States
more closely
Southern Command,
together
General
to
Francis
achieve
Donovan.
a shared objective.
We
and
thank
do
you for
so
traveling to be here with us for
aggressively.
this historic convening.
This is not
the
a one-way
America's
street.
Counter-Cartel Conference is a
Every
testament to
partner
our
in this
partnership
region has to do more
and this
and invest
administration's
more in your
unwavering
security
commitment
as well.
to secure the
We,
U.S.
like you,
homeland
want a
and our
hemisphere of
hemisphere.
sovereign,
At this
secure,
time, I'd
and
like to
prosperous
introduce the
nations.
Commander of the
We,
United
like
States
you,
Southern
want
Command,
what
General
another
Francis
great
Donovan.
American president, Teddy Roosevelt, called the permanent peace on this hemisphere, and it will require action from all of us. You know, our schools used to teach American school children about our blessed history. Every child in grade school grew up knowing the remarkable story of this country. They knew that President James Monroe was
United
once
States
an orphan,
Southern Command for the
and at a
America's
mere 16 years old,
Counter-Cartel
he had to look
Conference.
after his siblings.
It was a pleasure to meet many
I've
of
got
you
a
last night
16-year-old
at the
who couldn't
reception,
look after anything.
and even better to see many of their friends and
Remarkable.
teammates.
Well,
we
that
met
orphan
last
grew to
month
be not
at
just
the Child's
one of the greatest
Conference in
presidents, but one of our
Washington,
greatest Americans.
Secretary
After
Hegseth,
his presidency, when his wife
so thank
died
you for
and he
hosting
became
this
frail
vital
and ill
gathering
with
and
heart
your
failure,
enduring leadership.
he
Each
still
day you're
spoke
assuring
about
the
what he
security,
called our shared
stability,
cause
and
of
prosperity
liberty.
of the United States
Still
and
talked
the entire
about the
hemisphere.
toils and the perils
I'd
of
also
our
like
war
to welcome
for
and thank
independence.
the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy
James
and
Monroe,
Assistant to the President of Homeland
Our
Security,
seventh president,
Mr.
died on
Stephen
July
Miller.
4th, the 4th of July.
The Undersecretary of War for Policy, the Honorable
1831.
Eldridge Colby, who'll be joining us virtually today.
50 years after 1776.
The Chief of the National Guard Bureau.
What I like
General
to say
Stephen
is,
Nordhaus, Spock.
here at
Thank
the
you very much for
Department of
being
War,
here.
we're in the
The Assistant
1775
Secretary of War for
business,
Cyber Policy, the Honorable
which is
Catherine
when
Sutton,
Americans took up arms
the Acting
before they even
Assistant
declared
Secretary of War
independence.
for Homeland Defense.
All of you are
American
also in the
Security Affairs,
1775
and
business.
my now best friend,
Without the force of
Mr.
arms,
Joseph Humeyer.
Without our militaries, we
The
cannot
Principal
keep our
Deputy
country safe.
Assistant Secretary of
That's
War
my
for Homeland
responsibility,
Defense, the American Security
and
Affairs,
it is yours.
Mr. Mark Diddleson.
With Donald Trump in
and
the
Senior
Oval
Advisor
Office,
to the
and with
Secretary of
all
War,
of you here, we
Mr.
can
Eric
still
Garrissey,
realize that
Mr. Patrick
long
Weaver,
ago dream
Mr.
of
Philip
James
Hegseth.
Monroe in our time.
And welcome, most
will
importantly,
make
to all of our
the
partner
Americas
nations, ministers,
great again.
ambassadors,
Thank you, and God bless
and
you.
leaders joining us today. Thank you all for being here. Today we stand together at a very critical moment. Narco traffickers, drug cartels engage in campaigns of terror, violence, and corruption to enrich themselves and expand their insidious influence. They are poisoning
Thank you, Secretary
and killing
Hegseth.
all
We now
of our
invite each
nation's
of our
citizens.
partners to provide short remarks. Please
These
deliver
sophisticated
your
networks
remarks
flood our
seated at
streets
your chair
with
instead of
fentanyl,
coming up to the podium.
cocaine, and other
Prime
drugs
Minister
that kill
Phillips
at a
of
higher rate
Guyana,
than any
you have the
conventional
floor.
war. This is the single gravest threat to security in our region
Thank you.
and across
I thank
our
the government of the United States of America.
To counter this threat, the United States is
Honorable
guided by the
Secretary of War,
strategic vision of peace
accept
through security,
for
set
continuing
forth
this
in both the United
inaugural
States National Security
America's
Strategy
Counter-Cartel
and
Conference
the National
and
Defense
for the
Strategy.
invitation extended.
These
to
documents give our military a clear
Guyana and the United
mandate
States share
in
a
the Western
strong and
Hemisphere
expanding
to
strategic
defend the
partnership
U.S. homeland,
built
increase
on
burden
mutual
sharing
trust
with our allies
and
and
robust
partners
defense
to do
and
so.
security cooperation.
We are your
through
premier
capacity
partner to
building,
work with,
joint
by,
exercises,
with, and through your
and
nations to achieve
policy and
shared
technical
objectives.
engagements. Our
But when
countries
necessary,
have worked closely
we will
together
not hesitate
to
to
combat
act.
narco-trafficking and other forms
Operation
of
Southern
transnational
Spear and Absolute
crime.
Resolve are proof of this commitment.
Transnational activities of
Through these
cartels,
efforts, the United States is
gangs,
combating
and other
narco-terrorism and
criminal
drug
actors
trafficking
threaten
and, most
regional
importantly,
peace and
restoring
security.
deterrence.
These networks
The Western Hemisphere
undermine
is
the
our
rule of
neighborhood,
law,
and the narco-terrorists who
weaken
seek to export
institutions,
drugs and death to our shores
threaten
and your
the
shores
safety
will be dismantled
and economic
and
well-being
defeated.
of our citizens.
As allies and partners, we
countries
must
like
take
Guyana,
aggressive action together,
located along
sharing the burden
important
through
maritime
cooperation.
and regional transit
We now
corridors,
call upon our long-standing relationships
addressing
built on a
narco-trafficking
foundation of
and
trust
narco-terrorism,
and linked through shared
requires
culture,
strong
history,
cooperation
and
among
economic
our nations.
aspirations to unite for the
These
benefit
threats
of all
demand
of our nations.
coordinated intelligence sharing,
Our mutual security
enhanced
is at
operational
stake.
cooperation,
Through combined operations,
strengthened
training,
defense
exercises,
capabilities
intelligence
across the
information
hemisphere,
sharing, we will achieve
and to
greater domain
continue to
awareness,
respect the
interoperability,
sovereignty and territorial
and
integrity
capacity to strengthen
every state.
regional security.
As our region continues
With
to
all
grow
nations shouldering this
economically
burden,
and
our
strategically,
collective resilience will prevent
it is also
shared
essential
adversaries from using the
to work
region to
together
further their maligned
protect critical infrastructure,
agendas. The time
strengthen
is now.
national
Today
institutions,
marks the next step towards
and
moving
enhance
out
our
to deter
resilience
and defeat those
to
who
evolving
threaten the
security
security,
threats.
stability, and prosperity
Through
of the United
cooperation and
States
partnership,
and this hemisphere.
we can ensure
We all
that
face
our
these threats.
hemisphere
The
remains
most effective
safe,
way to counter and
secure,
eradicate
and a
them
true
is by standing
zone
together.
of peace.
Before I turn the stage
Guyana
over to Mr. Humar,
welcomes
I'd like to once again
the
thank you for your
adoption
stalwart
of the Joint
partnership.
Security Declaration of this
Your
conference.
participation here
looks forward
sends an
to joining
unmistakable
the
message
coalition
to
to
partners
combat
and
narco-terrorism.
adversaries alike. We are
government of
taking the
Guyana
fight to the
remains
narco-terrorists and the cartels.
to being a reliable and
Not only
active
are we
partner
redoubling our commitment to defend the
advancing
sovereignty
the
and security of our
security and
nations,
stability of
we
the
are
Western
doing it
Hemisphere.
together.
Thank you very much.
Realize our common vision of a safer, stronger, and more prosperous Western Hemisphere. Let's get to work.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Lieutenant General Presti of Argentina, you have the floor. Thank you, General Donovan. Ladies and gentlemen, performing the duties of Assistant Secretary of War for Homeland Defense and America's Security Affairs,
autoridades
Joseph
aquí
Humar.
presentes, antes de comenzar, quiero expresar nuestro respeto por los militares de Estados Unidos de América que recientemente perdieron la
And I'd be
vida
remiss if I
en
didn't
combate
begin by thanking
cumpliendo
my
con
new
su
best friend,
deber.
General Donovan, for your excellent remarks and frankly for your excellent teamwork here at Southcom. Your team has truly been amazing.
Sirvieron
All
a su
this
país con
together
honor.
in just a matter of a few weeks.
Argentina
So thank
honra
you,
su
General.
sacrificio y
I'd also
acompaña
like
a
to
su
begin
familia.
by acknowledging a special team of
Igualmente
senior
también con el
advisors and
accidente
defense
que ha tenido la
officials
Fuerza Aérea
who,
de
if not for their
Bolivia, un
efforts,
país
and not just
hermano,
today,
nuestro
but over the last several months, we frankly
Vengo
just
en
want to be here
nombre
today.
del presidente de la
Special
Nación
thank you
Argentina,
to Principal Deputy
nuestro
Assistant Secretary
comandante en
Wilson,
jefe de las Fuerzas
Acting
Armadas,
Deputy Assistant
nuestro
Secretary
líder,
Strasbaugh,
Javier
Mr. Eric
Milei,
Garrissey,
para
Senior Advisor
reafirmar el
Haydar,
compromiso de la
and a
República
special sincere
Argentina
and heartfelt thank
con
you
la seguridad
to
y
Senior
la
Advisors
estabilidad
Phil Peck
de nuestro
and Patrick
hemisferio.
Weaver. If it wasn't for
Los
you,
estados del
frankly, this would not have
continente
happened.
enfrentamos amenazas
To all our
de
interagency
naturaleza
friends
similar,
and foreign partners,
aunque en distinta
this is truly a
intensidad,
historic moment
que
for
afectan
the
a
United
nuestros
States,
ciudadanos,
for the Western Hemisphere,
a nuestros bienes,
and for the world.
a
In the
nuestros
room today,
recursos
we have senior
estratégicos
leadership from
y
the
a
Department
nuestras
of State,
infraestructuras
Department of
críticas.
Homeland Security,
Frente a
National
estos
Security Council,
desafíos,
Homeland Security
la
Council,
defensa
Office of National Drug
constituye
Control Policy,
una
Office of the
función
Vice President, and of course, the
indispensable
White
y
House.
central del Estado.
I'm honored to be here with you today as
Argentina
Secretary of
ocupa
Excellence,
un lugar
Acting
clave
Assistant Secretary of War
en el extremo
for
sur de
Homeland
nuestro
Defense in the
continente.
Americas.
Somos
Welcome
un
everyone
eje
to the
natural de
first
proyección
America's Counter-Cartel
hacia el Atlántico
Conference in
Sur
history.
y hacia la Antártida.
Every morning before I
Y
enter
un
the
actor
Pentagon,
con incidencia directa en las cadenas de suministros globales a partir de nuestros recursos estratégicos y nuestra capacidad productiva. Esta posición nos sitúa como un nodo relevante dentro de la arquitectura de seguridad regional y seguridad global, con la responsabilidad de contribuir a la estabilidad del sistema americano. El eje central de nuestra política de defensa es el desarrollo del capital humano y la incorporación inteligente de innovación tecnológica. Esa integración nos permite construir fuerzas armadas modernas, ágiles y preparadas para aportar estabilidad, previsibilidad y cooperación internacional efectiva en el ámbito regional.
Those of you that know me know that I've been working and studying on regional issues for more than 20 years. So I can confidently say that in 2024,
thank you, sir. Minister
Trump,
Monroe of the Bahamas,
I
you
never
have
seen
the
the
floor.
Americas in worse shape. Prior to President Trump, there was record-breaking illegal mass migration that was collapsing our border and many of your borders as well. There was record-breaking deaths of Americans from deadly drugs that was transiting through your countries and stealing your sovereignty. The explosion of transnational organized crime in every single country throughout the Americas was destroying our shared region. If you think about it, before President Trump, we were breaking all the records for all the wrong things. And it was even worse because there was a growing false narrative throughout the region that was taking hold that said you cannot win a war against major cartels and gangs because
Allow
you're
me to
too
use
powerful.
this occasion to reiterate that the military
Some cases, and even in some
cooperation between
countries,
the Bahamas and the United States
frankly,
must
they were
be
giving
based
up
on the shared
and adopted a
commitment to
posture
peace,
as
sovereignty,
you
and
can't beat
security.
them, join them.
Consistent with our existing bilateral
That's not tolerable
agreements and
anymore.
with full respect
Not for the United
sovereignty
States,
and
not for
laws
your
of each
countries,
country and with
and not for our
due regard to the
neighborhood.
international
If you
legal
look to your
norms.
right and you look
The
to your
Bahamas
left,
intends to work
you'll find
closely with
partners
the United
that
States
are willing to fight
Department
with
of
you.
War
And
in
if we collectively fight
expanding
together,
joint
there is no gang,
cooperation,
there's no terrorist, there's
recognizing
no
the shared
cartel that is
responsibility
more
for
powerful than
regional
us.
security and stability.
We are here
Bahamas
today because
welcomes
each of you has
closer
committed to doing your
collaboration
part.
on military-to-military
And that commitment
efforts
cannot just be lip service.
regarding border security,
This must come with a new approach and a new normal to dismantle and destroy our shared threats of cartels and narco-terrorism. There'll be a lot of discussions today on a myriad of topics, but I really want to quickly emphasize two that are central to this effort.
And our resource
Border
capacity
security
is significant,
and deterrence.
and it is not sustainable.
If you do not control your borders,
Our vast
you do not have a
maritime
country.
domain requires
Border
continuous
security and
aerial
territorial integrity, as
maritime
President Trump has
patrols.
shown, is
Our surveillance
possible.
infrastructure requires
Since
sustained
1848,
capital
since the Peace of
investment.
Westphalia,
And our
sovereignty has
security
been the
personnel
bedrock
require
of human flourishing.
advanced training
You
in
do not have a
counter-narcotics,
democracy if you do not have your
counter-trafficking,
sovereignty,
and
and you cannot have
cyber
sovereignty without borders.
The concept of peace through
Open borders make
strength carries
transnational
enduring
organized
resonance.
crime
And
fundamentally
if we are
transnational.
candid, enduring
And you do not
misapplications.
combat transnational
For a small
crime
state
with
like the
transnational
Bahamas, it
institutions.
is not about
You fight it
arsenal
with borders
size.
and national
It is
sovereignty.
about integrity of our
If we remove
institutions,
the transnational
credibility
from
of our
transnational
courts,
organized crime,
courts, and
becomes
the
a local
depths of our
problem,
partnerships.
becomes a solvable
Hence,
problem.
peace through strength, as we understand
The second
it,
point is
not
on deterrence.
unilateral. It is collective.
Interdiction,
It rests on the
unnecessary,
recognition that
is not
hemispheric
deterrence.
security is
Dialogue,
indivisible,
while useful,
that what
is not
weakens
deterrence.
Nassau
failing to
ultimately
control your
weakens
prisons,
Miami.
your borders, or your waters is not deterrence.
Instability in Port-au-Prince reaches
Going on
Nassau
offense
long before
is deterrence.
it reaches Washington.
Operation Southern Spears
small
shows that
states on the
deterrence
front
is
line of
taking
transnational
lethal
crime
and bold actions.
serve genuine
And
partners,
our goal is for every
not
partner
conditional
in this room today to
Let
start
me
leading
close by stating
deterrence-focused
the Bahamas'
offensive operations
commitment and
against your
expectation
cartels.
with directness
And
is
finally, to
foreign
wrap
laws.
up, I want to make a point about
Bahamas will
geography.
continue to operate
Because
as a
geography in this
frontline
hemisphere is
maritime
indispensable to security.
partner.
I mean, the secret
Disrupting
sauce of
narcotics
Latin America and the
trafficking
Caribbean
routes,
could
denying
be a
criminal
regional priority
networks
for
the
the United
use of our
States.
waters and
It's not
airspace,
the size of your
and
trade, it's
contributing
not your
meaningfully
populations or
to
your
the
military,
security architecture
because we are always
of
going
this
to be
hemisphere.
connected
The
because of
Bahamas
our shared
brings in this
geography.
partnership something
The United
no
States
defense
understood this
budget
going
can
back to
manufacture.
1815,
Geography,
when two leaders
institutional
in a relatively
commitment,
young Department
and
of
a
War
track record of
pushed back against their own
cooperation
establishment at that
spanning
time,
more than 4 decades.
not to look north or to look
We ask only
east,
what we give.
but rather to look
Genuine
south.
partnership grounded in mutual
Department of
respect.
War back then fought and won the Battle of New Orleans
The
in
Americas
1815
either
that connected the United
secures
States to what is now the Gulf of
collectively
America.
or it fails
In that moment,
collectively.
210 years
The
ago,
Commonwealth of the
connected
Bahamas
my
has
country to
chosen
yours.
collective security.
And just a few years
And we
after that,
invite every
these same two
partner
leaders
assembled
led the
there
Department of War to fight
meet
another
that
war
commitment with
on our
equal
southern
resolve
border the Seminole
equal
Wars.
investment, and equal determination.
This time to protect our borders against Indian tribes that trespassed our land, raided our towns, and killed Americans. We ultimately won these battles.
Thank you, Minister
transferred the great
Monroe.
state of Florida
Minister Marin of Belize, you have the floor.
And then a mere 2 years later, one of these leaders declared something called the Monroe Doctrine.
General Donovan,
The legacy of then Secretary of War James Monroe, who later became President James Monroe, and Major General Andrew Jackson, who also later became president, defines the challenge that we have before us today. They say history doesn't repeat itself, but it tends to rhyme. And our interest over the shared geography is the same today as it was 200 years ago.
Around a shared purpose.
Today, the Department of War once again has historic leadership under Secretary Pete Hegseth, committed to working with all of you to secure the Western Hemisphere once and for all. Thank you. God bless you.
As a small but strategically located nation, bridging Central America and the Caribbean, we sit along key maritime.
Thank you. I would now like to invite Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Assistant to the President for Homeland Security, Stephen Miller, to the podium. Sir, the floor is yours.
Distort economies, fuel corruption, and erode the safety and confidence of our citizens. Cartels and transnational criminal organizations do not respect our borders. They adapt quickly, leveraging technology, exploiting institutional gaps, and moving seamlessly across jurisdictions.
And thank you to my good friend, Secretary Hegseth,
equally adaptive,
I've long admired but I've gotten to know personally in the last number of months. And he is as fine a gentleman and as fierce a warrior as you will ever meet. And we all learn to put our faith and confidence in his leadership of the War Department, so thank you.
Close interagency collaboration.
There's been a paradigm shift under President Trump in the Western Hemisphere in the last 14 months.
Strengthening our legal
Some of that was touched on by the earlier speakers, but just to restate it,
but no nation,
we are not going to cede an inch of territory in this hemisphere to our enemies or our adversaries. Our national security, our homeland security, the safety and well-being of our people begins at home, begins in our neighborhood, begins in our home region. And for too long, we have allowed foreign enemies, foreign adversaries, and enemy terrorist organizations to control territory and spaces in this hemisphere where they can project power, project threats, and directly threaten the lives of your citizens and our citizens. And so under the leadership of President Trump, we are using hard power, military power, lethal force to protect and defend the American homeland. Not a single one of your nations should tolerate the existence of a single square mile of territory that is under the control of any entity other than the sovereign governments of your country. The idea that we would have in this hemisphere area that are under the physical control of foreign terrorist organizations, paramilitary organizations, is completely unacceptable.
Thank you.
The cartels that operate in this hemisphere are the ISIS and the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere.
Thank you, Minister Marin. Minister Salinas of Bolivia, you have the floor.
As we treat those organizations. What we have learned after decades of effort is that there is not a criminal justice solution to the cartel problem. There are elements of the problem that require a criminal justice solution, to be sure. But just as we fought Al-Qaeda and fought ISIS with the tip of a very lethal spear,
Bolivia comparece ante este foro plenamente consciente de las amenazas emergentes que hoy desafían la estabilidad de nuestra región, generando incluso tensiones e inestabilidad entre países hermanos con un entorno de guerra híbrida permanente. Reconocemos que el crimen organizado transnacional ha mutado hacia formas de actor para institucional, operando con impunidad a través de las fronteras que hasta ahora han sido porosas, erosionando la soberanía efectiva de nuestros estados. Ante esta realidad, Bolivia propone la consolidación de una seguridad cooperativa e integral. Buscamos establecer mecanismos de confianza mutua y coordinación de acciones combinadas con nuestros vecinos y con los Estados Unidos, alineándonos con el paradigma de
do
que la
not
seguridad
provide their
de un
citizens
Estado
with basic
es
physical security.
interdependiente
So those citizens,
con la de sus
in
vecinos y
search
sus aliados.
of economic opportunity,
Nuestra posesión
illegally
geográfica
immigrate to the
estratégica,
United States, they pay the
como una
smugglers, they pay
síntesis
the
donde se
cartels,
integran
who
los
then grow
Andes y la
richer, who then go
Amazonía,
more powerful,
nos sitúa en una encrucijada
and then
crítica.
your countries in turn become poor because you've lost your
Podemos
citizens,
permitir
you've lost your human
que el
capital,
crimen
you've lost your
organizado
opportunities to
transnacional
develop
nos utilice
and to
como un
grow.
hub
You
para
get
hacer la
poor, the
distribución de
cartels get more
insumos y
powerful,
sustancias
nothing
ilegales,
changes, nothing
o podemos
improves.
transformarlos en un
You have
hub
to
soberano
break that
que
cycle.
distribuye información
You have to
y seguridad
completely
para todo el
sever it.
hemisferio.
And that begins by dismantling
Para
these
alcanzar este
organizations
objetivo, mi país
that
está trabajando
deal drugs, deal
con
violence,
inversión propia en el
assassinate,
desarrollo de un
extort,
sistema
blackmail,
de
and
vigilancia
also traffic
integral
illegally in human beings.
que integra
That is a
datos
form of
satelitales,
terrorism, too.
drones y radares
Illegal
militares.
immigration,
Esta es nuestra
facilitated
primera
by criminal
estrategia
networks,
para
is a form
permear,
of
sellar
terrorism.
las fronteras
And those
que el
who are
crimen ha
stealing your
explotado.
children and stealing your families
Y
and stealing your human
fundamentalmente
capital
para controlar las zonas
are part of
grises
that terrorist
que se han
continuum.
constituido
It
en
should be
nuestro
thought of as
territorio tras de 20
It is not a
años de
victimless
indolencia
crime when people
y
are paying human smuggling
desinstitucionalización.
organizations, because that money then fuels assassinations, it
Entendemos
fuels
que la
violence, it
defensa
fuels
moderna
instability, and it
exige un
continues
enfoque
this cycle.
multidominio,
For decades,
ya que las amenazas
a lot
actuales
of
ejercen un
organizations were
control
sent to your
no solo
countries.
del espacio
These
físico,
are known as NGOs, I think you know the term, non-governmental organizations.
sino
And
también en
they
el
give you
virtual,
very,
en
very
el
bad advice
cognitivo.
for a very, very long time.
Es el dominio cognitivo y
And
virtual
basically they told
donde el
in
crimen
short,
organizado
that you need to be
transnacional
softer and
vive una de
gentler
sus
and nicer
batallas
to
más
the criminals,
peligrosas, afectando
and that
la
you
mente
had
de los
to
pobladores locales
demilitarize your
para usarlos
approach
como
and
escudos
extend
de
more rights
protección
and
y
more
legitimidad
opportunities
social.
to the people who are sabotaging
Nuestra
and destroying society.
determinación es clara. Buscamos
the
que la
point to
acción
you,
del
as
Estado
others pointed
boliviano
out before,
ataque los núcleos
including the president
estratégicos del
of
crimen
El Salvador, that the West
organizado
only
transnacional,
achieved the place that it did in
reduciendo al
human
máximo
history
cualquier daño
because it
colateral.
spent
Sin
previous
embargo,
centuries
para
eradicating
alcanzar nivel
criminal
de
elements
precisión
within its
técnica,
territories.
inteligencia,
So the West that we
estrategia
came to know,
y superioridad
that had the great
decisional
music and architecture and
que esta misión
science
requiere
and the most powerful
y
economy.
necesitamos de
It
la
spent
cooperación
centuries
activa
previous to that
de nuestros vecinos y aliados
establishing
para mejorar
order
nuestra
first.
capacidad operativa.
So that by the time you get to
Bolivia
say,
está lista
18th
para
century
asumir su
England,
rol
19th century England,
como eje de
there have been
estabilidad en el
centuries of
corazón de
previous
Sudamérica,
history in
protegiendo
which
nuestros
ruthless
recursos
means were used to get rid of the
estratégicos y
people who were
garantizando que la
raping
ley y
and
la
murdering
soberanía
and
prevalezca sobre
defying
el
established
caos
systems
criminal.
of order and
Muchas gracias.
justice. And then when people could live freely and peaceably, and children and families and women could be safe, then it became possible
Thank you,
to
Minister
pursue all
Salinas.
these higher elements of life.
Mr. Barros of
So
Chile,
when people who
you
are
have
coming
the
to
floor.
countries like yours that have had struggles and difficulties and pain and challenges,
Thanks,
and they're telling you anything
Secretary
other
Effect
than first and foremost,
General Donovan.
secure your
Thank
countries
to
and your
all of
territory.
them who
They're
had
giving you
created the
not only
initiative
terrible
of this
advice,
meeting.
but advice if someone had come
It's great to see the
to
government
Europe
of the United States of America
centuries ago and they have followed that advice, Europe would have never became the Europe that it eventually
illegal
became.
immigration,
And the reason why many Western
diseases
countries are
our
struggling
countries
today
are suffering
is they've
today.
forgotten the eternal truth and wisdoms they
Let
once
me
followed.
respectfully say,
And that's why here
welcome
under
back.
President Trump in America, we are returning to
It's
this
very
fundamental
good
truth.
for us
We're
to see
returning to
we
this
have the
fundamental
stage back again.
So I'll just close by saying that you will have in President Trump,
And this conference,
the White House,
and this meeting,
in
and
the
we are
Department of
getting
War,
together,
the
we are
Department of
joining
State, and the whole of our government,
because
unwavering
there's a great
support,
threat in cartels and other
unwavering
criminals.
commitment and fidelity
Why?
in
Because they
achieving
hurt
this
our
mission,
societies. They create
which
poverty,
is
they
very
create
simply
pain, they
to
create weakness
eradicate
in our
the
countries.
criminal cartels
They
and
act
terrorist
against
organizations,
the law.
to deprive them of
That's a
control
great
of
issue. That's why
weapons,
we go against them.
spaces,
It's against the
institutions,
law
and
approved
territory.
democratically in our
And the
nations. In
human
accordance
rights that we
with
are going to
our
protect
sovereignty
are not
and
of the savages
the power and the
that
decision
torture
of the
and rape
people.
and murder. The
And
human
our
rights that we are going to
governments
protect
are
of the
forced to
peaceable
defend
citizens
the
who
rule
have
of
an
law.
absolute
It's
human
because
right to live
the law
in
of
physical
civilized
safety and
nations,
security every
we
day
will
of their
join
lives.
and work together
And that mission,
to end the
I promise
pandemic
you, we
of
will
the
be your closest
cartels and
partner.
all the
Thank you.
criminal actions of the associated with them. The great difference between them and us is
that this alliance is against criminals.
Ladies and gentlemen,
And
it is now
we
my
will
distinct
fight them.
pleasure to introduce our
decision is
Secretary
to
of War,
strengthen
the Honorable Pete
Our
Hegseth.
work together, as you mentioned, and we will do it in accordance with the rule of law. And we will be tough, we will fight, we will be in a war because the
Well, good morning, everybody.
But we will
General Donovan and I are pleased to welcome all of you to Southern Command this morning. I'm honored to be the first Secretary of War to lead a hemispheric defense conference like this in more than 30
Thank you, Mr.
years.
Barros. Minister Zamora of Costa Rica, you have the floor.
This is about you. This conference is about us. This conference is not called the America apostrophe S, America's Counter-Cartel Conference. It's the America's Counter-Cartel Conference. This is about what we together can do. It's been more than 200 years since our nation struggled for independence from foreign rule. The War of 1812 was about the United States defending its independence and protecting its territory. A 47-year-old Carolinian who was a major general in the Army, as was mentioned, Andrew Jackson, defeated a British army almost double the size. Addressing his troops after victory at the Battle of New Orleans, Jackson declared, "Natives of different states acting together for the first time have reaped the fruits of an honorable union." His success galvanized the young country. In 1816, our country elected a Revolutionary War hero as president. James Monroe fought in the Continental Army, leading a charge against German mercenaries fighting for the British. The enemy fired a musket ball. It severed his artery and he almost died. But the young captain rallied and grew to be governor of Virginia, secretary of war, and one of our greatest presidents. In 1823, President Monroe said that the United States owed the success of that young country to the candor and amicable relations with other powers to affirm our national policy. President Monroe declared we should consider any attempt on malign countries to extend their system to any portion of this hemisphere as dangerous to our peace and safety.
Entonces, llevamos a cabo un tratado de patrullaje conjunto con los Estados Unidos.
And today, some 200 years later, we still marvel at the wisdom of President Monroe's declaration.
A los navíos de Estados Unidos cuando están en mares
costarricenses. Y
eso ha sido una dissuasión efectiva y hoy con el Comando Sur estamos trabajando para que todas las fronteras costarricenses tengan escalas en aire, mar y tierra para que ninguna exportación que llegue a los Estados Unidos desde Costa Rica no sea escaneada.
Ours should be a region of strong, sovereign nations. It's the same principle that animates President Trump's defense approach today. President Trump and his Department of War are ushering in a new era of homeland and hemispheric defense, rooted in the unique heritage of our nation and your nations. Under President Trump, we restored the Department of War.
Mencionando que también está el Tratado de San José, que nos da un marco legal también para incrementar estas cooperaciones y estos trabajos conjuntos en materia de seguridad. Costa Rica va a proponer su nombre porque
under President Trump, our nation has a newfound resolve that our founders would recognize.
Deben definir también una vicepresidencia operativa. Nosotros consideraríamos un honor ocupar
we are at long last putting America, Americans, and the Americas first, ensuring peace through strength and restoring common sense. At our department, we're doing it by restoring the warrior ethos,
Thank you, Minister Zamora.
rebuilding
General
our military to
of the Dominican Republic,
and reestablishing deterrence in this hemisphere and around the world.
Señor Secretario Hetze,
for too long, leaders in Washington and their foreign policy functionaries abandoned the simple wisdom of the Monroe Doctrine. They were consumed with the United States only going abroad. They ignored the warnings of President John Quincy Adams, who said that if our nation went overseas only in search of monsters to destroy, that we would cease to be the ruler of our own spirit and our own backyard. Under previous leaders, we grew obsessed with every other theater and every other border in the world except our own. These elites reduced our power and presence in this hemisphere, opting for a benign neglect that was anything but benign. In your countries,
En nuestra condición de nación caribeña, ubicada en una posición geoestratégica clave, asumimos con responsabilidad el desafío de enfrentar el narcotráfico, el narcoterrorismo, el crimen organizado transnacional y las amenazas emergentes que impactan directamente a nuestras sociedades. Respaldamos firmemente esta declaración conjunta de seguridad, orientada a ampliar la cooperación multilateral y bilateral, fortalecer los esfuerzos integrales de nuestros gobiernos en materia de seguridad fronteriza, proteger infraestructuras críticas y consolidar nuestra capacidad. Estos desafíos no reconocen fronteras. Por tanto, nuestra respuesta debe ser en conjunto. Creemos en la promoción de la paz a través de la fuerza legítima del Estado y en la cooperación estratégica entre naciones aliadas. Unirnos en una coalición hemisférica contra el narcoterrorismo y otras amenazas compartidas no es solo una opción, es una necesidad histórica. La República Dominicana reafirma su firme compromiso con la estabilidad, la democracia y el desarrollo de la región. Estamos listos para alinear prioridades, compartir buenas prácticas y explorar nuevas oportunidades de colaboración que nos permitan anticipar riesgos, disuadir amenazas y proteger a nuestros ciudadanos. Juntos, con voluntad política y acción coordinada, fortaleceremos la seguridad del hemisferio occidental y construiremos un futuro más próspero y más seguro para nuestras naciones. Muchas gracias.
Well, President Trump, recognizing the wisdom of the days of us betraying.
Thank you, General Onofre. Minister Lofredo of Ecuador, you have the floor.
Good morning,
President Trump
everyone.
has reestablished
I am here today representing the government
corollary
of the Republic of
the
Ecuador.
Monroe Doctrine.
I stand before this multilateral forum not only as a Minister of Defense, but as the spokesman
Under President Trump, securing America's interest in the Western Hemisphere and keeping our homeland safe
and political
are our
will
top
to confront
national security
the greatest threat of our contemporary history.
The President's historic national defense strategy ensures that the Department of War will prioritize resources around
the
the
decisions
threats
we make
and objectives
at this conference
that are core to
will directly
homeland defense
impact the security and
the people
stability
and
of our
prosperity
future
of the American
generations.
people. And to start, the
Historically,
Department of War
our
is once again
nations have
defending
shared
our
the
borders
values
as
of
a
democracy,
priority of our national
freedom,
defense.
and the rule of law.
With our law enforcement
Today, those
partners, we are
values
defending our
demand a
borders and
common
making our
strategic
streets safe
response
again.
from us.
Crossings
On
at
the
our
basis
southern
of
border
this principle,
at the
our
U.S.-Mexico
national
border
defense
have dropped
policy
to the
aligns
lowest
with the
number
United States
in history.
national defense strategy.
Murders nationwide have
Ecuador
plummeted by more than
recognizes
20%.
that the border security
We now have
is an essential
operational control
component of
of our southern
national and
border. Zero
hemispheric
people
security.
are crossing our
The
southern
threats we
border.
face have mutated.
We will not rest until
We are
we have
not
complete
dealing with
operational
dispersed
control of
criminal
every
networks,
inch of all
but
of our
with
borders.
destabilizing
So it starts with
structures
us.
with
We're
transnational
addressing it,
scope
but we're not
and
stopping there.
links that
Under
erode
President Trump, for the first
democratic
time in history,
institutions.
Department of War is on the
Narco-terrorist
offense against
organizations
narco-terrorists.
not only
as
traffic
well.
drugs,
I should back up
they
a step,
challenge the legitimate
in order to
authority
get 100%
of the
operational
state
control of our
and
border,
affect
we
the
didn't
freedom
just look at
and
Border Patrol
prosperity
and
of
say
our
that's
citizens.
your job. It's a law enforcement
The security of
We
our
deployed the
hemisphere
United
is
States military.
indivisible.
Right now, the
Every nation
Division
that
Command of the
strengthens its
101st
capacities
Airborne is in operational
contributes to the
control of the
regional
southern
stability.
border. We ensured
In
that the
this
most
context,
capable assets
Ecuador
we had in our country were
commitment is
deployed to our own border
its own
to
security
defend that
also
border
constitutes
against the
an important
narco-terrorists and drug dealers
contribution
seeking to
to the
enter our
security
country,
of the
not treating it
Americas.
simply as a law.
During the last few years,
function.
Ecuador
Working with
has
our
ceased to
partners,
be merely
but
a transit
recognizing
country
it's a
and
core
has
military
become
function.
one of the
But going
main
on
departure
offense with
points
Operation
for
Southern
drug
Spear
trafficking
has restored
to
deterrence against the
international markets.
narco-terrorist cartels that
This
profit
evolution
from
of
poisoning
criminal
Americans.
activity has
Last
generated
month, we went a
a wave
few weeks
of
without targeting a
unprecedented
single vote.
violence in our recent history.
Why?
In addition to
Because we
this,
couldn't find a whole lot of
there
votes to
exists
sink.
a structural factor that cannot
And that's
be
the whole
ignored.
point, is to
The
establish
expansion
deterrence
of illicit crops
from
in the
narco-terrorists
region
who have
and the
been able to traffic
modernization of
almost
production
unfettered.
and distribution chains.
And if the consequence was
As long
simply to
as
be
these
arrested and then
dynamics
released, well, that's
persist,
the consequence they'd
the
already priced
pressure
in a
on our
long time ago.
territories will continue.
a new dynamic
confirming that we face a challenge that transcends borders and demands effective cooperation.
And when adversaries are forced to move out of comfortable positions,
to address this, our government made a clear decision to restore the authority of the state without any ambiguity. Through the declaration of an internal armed conflict, our armed forces and national police, acting in a coordinated manner, are decisively confronting these groups.
In January, U.S. forces raided and arrested
over its territory
the most dangerous
and
house in the
restoring the
most dangerous
principle of
compound
authority.
inside the most fortified fort in the capital city
As the
of
Ecuadorian
Caracas.
government, we propose to strengthen cooperation on three specific fronts: reinforcing intelligence and interoperability capacities, modernizing border and port control using advanced technology, as well as a sustained support scheme that consolidates
President Trump
our
has shown what is possible when
capacities
you reject
in the
the
long
status
term.
quo delusion
We
that
need to
threats
keep
to
in
our
mind
homeland
that
and our
it's not
hemisphere are
just about
somehow
combating illicit
secondary.
shipments. It's about
America is
protecting our
prepared to take on these
societies, our
threats and
economies,
go on the
and our
offense
future.
alone if
Ecuador is
necessary.
willing to do its part.
However,
We hope to consolidate
it is our
together
preference,
with you,
and
with
it
all
is
of
the
you
goal of
sitting
this
at this table,
conference,
a coordinated
in the interest
effort
of this
that
neighborhood, we
ensures
all do it
organized
together
crime
with
has
you,
no
with our
place in the
neighbors and
Western
with our
Hemisphere.
allies who are eager and
The
willing and capable.
effectiveness
To do
of
this,
that
to work
effort
together,
will
we
depend
must
on
first
our
acknowledge what
ability
was
to
lost
consolidate it
and then
by
understand what
assuming
needs to
real
be
co-responsibility
All
and
the nations
sustaining it
represented
over
in this
time
room
with the
are
firmness
offsprings of
and
Western
determination that this threat
Our
demands.
nations are and always will be united by our heritage, our history, and geography in this new world.
Thank you,
We
Minister
share
Lafredo.
the same
Minister
interests.
Marino of El Salvador,
And
you have
because of
the
this,
floor.
we face an essential test.
Señor
Whether our
Secretario
nations will
de
be
Guerra
and remain
Jefe,
Western
Señor
nations
General
with
Donovan,
distinct
comandante del Comando Sur,
characteristics, Christian nations
miembros
under God.
del staff,
Proud of our shared
los
heritage
Estados
with
Unidos,
strong borders and prosperous people ruled not by
resto
violence
de
and chaos, but by
miembros de
law,
los diferentes países que
order,
están acá
and common
representados,
sense.
tengan buenos días.
Or whether we are
Primero
permanently
es
torn
para
apart by
nosotros
something
como
else, led
salvadoreños
astray by competing
un honor
forces.
el haber
Radical
sido
narco-communism
seleccionado
and anarcho-tyranny,
para
which threaten our people,
este selecto
borders, and
grupo
sovereign lands
de
in the
países
name of a false
que ha
sovereignty.
mostrado el interés de generar un cambio
Uncontrolled
en
mass
la
migration,
seguridad
which
hemisférica.
overwhelms domestic resources,
Quiero traer
intended
a
for
este
deserving
punto
citizens,
uno de los
and drives
pensamientos
unchecked crime
en los
and
cuales
unchecked
nuestro
violence.
presidente Nayib Bukele
Or the belief in
se ha
so-called
basado
globalism
para hacer la
that seeks to
transformación
erase our
que
distinct national
está
identities in the
realizando
name
en El
of
Salvador.
tolerance.
Y es
Erase our
que
borders
él
in the name of
dice que
compassion.
quien perdona
Erase
al lobo
our warrior ethos and
sacrifica
that which
a las
makes us
ovejas.
strong in the name of so-called
Y eso es lo que
diversity.
estaba sucediendo en nuestro país.
One of the dumbest
que
phrases in military history
La ONG,
used to be echoed
estas
from the former
organizaciones de
Defense
derechos
Department in the
humanos,
previous administration.
siempre decían que
Say
había que
over
proteger
and over
a los
again.
niños, a los
Our
delincuentes.
diversity is our strength.
Y obviamente
Single
dejaba en manos
dumbest
de la
phrase in
delincuencia
military history.
a la población honrada.
Because what is our
El señor
strength is our
presidente,
unity.
en contra
Our strength is in
de
our
muchas
shared
opiniones
purpose.
internacionales
In the
inclusive,
training we do together, the
tomó la
capabilities we
decisión
have to do
de
we can do
hacer
together.
uso
In our context,
de
the
la Fuerza
Constitution, we swear an
Armada
oath to defend
para
together. The
batir
uniform we wear
la amenaza
together.
mayor que
That
teníamos
is
en
our
ese
strength.
momento, que era las
We
maras y
reject
pandillas.
other notions
Y
and offer
nos dio la orden de
We must
integrarnos
defend our
a la
national
Policía
interests and
Nacional
restore
Civil
our national identities.
para resolver ese
Otherwise, the
problema.
outcome is the same. Our hemisphere will
Y
be poorer,
en un
more
corto
dangerous,
tiempo
and
transformó nuestro presidente Bukele
This matters not
a El
because we seek
Salvador
to
de
preach
ser
to you about
la
culture
capital
wars
del
or
homicidio,
ideologies,
de
or
ser
tell you how to run your
el país
countries.
más
We're not here to
peligroso
tell you
del
how to run your
mundo,
countries.
a convertirse
Instead, it matters
en el
how we
país
assess
más
the
seguro
threats facing us
del hemisferio
and the
occidental.
choices that we make on how
Una de
to
las
overcome
líneas
them. That is what
de
will define
operaciones
our destiny.
del señor presidente Nayib Bukele
President
desde
Trump
un
understands
principio,
that today's threats to
cuando
border security and
pusimos en
key
ejecución
terrain
el
in
plan
our
control
hemisphere
territorial,
are existential
fue
questions
la lucha contra el
for our
narcotráfico.
nation and for
Y
all of
cuando
us.
otros países
When
aún no
adversaries
comenzaban
conduct incursions
a
in this
hacer ese
hemisphere,
trabajo,
off the coast of
nosotros los
US state,
salvadoreños,
Alaska,
con una marina
or off the coast of
pequeña,
Greenland, or in the
con
Gulf of America, or
capacidades
the Caribbean,
no
that is a direct threat
tan
to the United
bondadosas como
States
la de otros
homeland
países,
and to peace
salíamos
in this
hasta 1000
hemisphere.
millas a hacer sendas
When
de
adversaries
captaciones
control
de droga.
ports
Y creo que eso demuestra la voluntad de nuestro presidente y demuestra que la teoría llevada a la práctica da resultados. Recientemente tuvimos uno de los logros mayores en la lucha contra el narcotráfico, que fue la incautación de un buque multipropósito, 54 metros de eslora, cargado con 6.6 toneladas de cocaína a 380 millas de nuestras costas. Para lograr esto, obviamente, nosotros también tenemos que reconocer y agradecer a Estados Unidos el apoyo que nos da, que nos permite ese honor de entrenar junto con su fuerza aérea. En la visita que hizo nuestro presidente el año pasado a la Casa Blanca, que luego tuve la oportunidad de visitar el Pentágono, le hacíamos unas solicitudes a usted, secretario, y que le pedíamos que nos enviara otro equipo de fuerzas especiales de los SEALs para entrenar con nuestros clientes. Y accedió a eso, tenemos entrenando con nosotros, y también le puedo decir que los resultados se están viendo reflejados en estas últimas incautaciones que hemos realizado. Como salvadoreños queremos decirle a todos los acá presentes que la voluntad de los salvadoreños está para ayudar a todos los demás países que puedan necesitar tal vez de alguna orientación o de alguna transmisión de la experiencia que nosotros hemos tenido, porque en verdad transformar un país de ser el país más peligroso del mundo a el más seguro del hemisferio no ha sido tan fácil, pero también es el reflejo de otro de los conceptos que nuestro presidente mantiene, y dice que no puede haber delincuencia más fuerte que el poder del Estado, y que cuando la delincuencia se apodera de un Estado es porque sus funcionarios no son corruptos o no están con la voluntad de combatirlo. Así que con esto quiero reiterar el apoyo del gobierno de El Salvador en este esfuerzo. Estamos contentos de que hayan retomado la doctrina Monroe. Consideramos que la seguridad de cada uno de los países contribuye a la seguridad de todo nuestro continente y por lo tanto la seguridad de manera individual de cada país. Muchas gracias.
And we will do this again. If we're serious about our national security, and if we prioritize geography, business as usual will not stand.
Good morning,
this
everyone.
means that for every country in this hemisphere, border security must be your top priority.
Dice presente.
Border security
y dice presente como un Estado comprometido
President Trump said it when he first started to run. You're not a country
del hemisferio occidental.
And he's right. President Trump sealed our border by directing the military to mobilize resources and personnel to stop invasion by cartels and other criminal actors. You can do this as well, and many of you have. This also means that you too can and must go on the offense against narco-terrorists.
Infiltran las instituciones del Estado.
We've had great collaboration with many countries in recent months, and I want to thank every country in this room that has supported our access to find, fix, and finish cartel targets. We have only just begun to work with you. More must be done by you and by us to target narco-terrorist groups across all domains.
No comparten nuestra libertad
we will dismantle narco-terrorist networks in this hemisphere, and we will deny access to
Para
the state
Guatemala, la seguridad
adversaries who support them.
la seguridad
We will
hemisférica es
correct the
prioridad.
mistakes of the past,
Por ello,
the mistakes of the
ya estamos
so-called
trabajando
global South.
en la operación
I want to thank
Cinturón de
General
Fuego,
Donovan, who has been
un
an
despliegue
excellent partner and a
estratégico
great new leader here at
que
Southern
asegura
Command.
nuestra frontera,
One of the great mistakes of the past
principalmente
was
la
that our
más
leaders
porosa y la
didn't
más
provide the
peligrosa
U.S.
con nuestro
Southern
hermano
Command
país de México.
with the support that it needed.
Además,
It was a command
cierra
chock
los
full of
espacios
lawyers
a
and
las
social
economías
workers
ilícitas
and
que traen
NGOs,
estas
law
organizaciones,
enforcement.
porque
That's
también
changing.
entendemos que esta amenaza
General, I'm
es
directing
híbrida.
my team to correct these historic failures
Compartimos la
to ensure that
convicción
your command
de que la paz
has the resources and
no
staff
son
that you need
únicamente
for this robust
declaraciones
mission
en
ahead.
conferencias.
It's the least we can do.
Compartimos
I want to
que necesitamos
absolutely thank you.
determinación, Necesitamos capacidades, pero necesitamos una cooperación real.
It's about time. But it's not just us at the Department of War, and it's not just Southern Command. This is across the Trump administration. This is across the Department of War as well.
Hoy podemos
Stephen Miller,
lucir
thank you for your support and your leadership, your clarity,
pudimos
understanding
colaborar
why
con
this
dos
matters to each
contingentes en
American
Haití,
citizen, and why the War Department is
asumiendo
central
con
to ensuring that
responsabilidad
it doesn't happen.
una responsabilidad concreta, la restauración del orden y la
I
estabilidad
want to thank General
en el
Nordhaus as
Caribe.
well for your support.
Creemos en
At
la
every level, there's so many to
corresponsabilidad
thank. I see
hemisférica.
Corey Lewandowski here from the
Guatemala
Department of
no
Homeland
es un
Security. Doesn't happen
espectador en
without
esta
the Department
etapa.
of Homeland Security.
Aspiramos a ser un socio que comparte la carga, que invierte en su propia defensa y que contribuye activamente a un frente unido contra estas organizaciones criminales y contra cualquiera que busque debilitar las democracias en nuestro hemisferio. Guatemala confirma con hechos lo que ha hecho históricamente. Hemos estado siempre del lado correcto de la historia.
And Ricky Berea, my chief,
y lo quiero lucir.
doing a great job putting this
Quiero
together.
volver a decirlo.
Tony,
Guatemala
Salisbury,
ha
thank
estado
you.
del lado
So many
correcto
folks
de la
that
historia.
every single day in Washington, I hope you know,
La paz no es una
are working
ausencia de
hard to run
conflicto.
as fast as you are.
La
to stand
paz
alongside
es
you
un
in this
resultado
mission. This is not
de
a
la
conference
fuerza legítima del
with
Estado.
flags, so we can pat ourselves on the back.
Ejercida con responsabilidad,
I can tell you that if I sold that to President Trump as the objective,
pero
he'd
con
kick me out of his
determinación.
office. This is an
Guatemala
operational conference
cree
to bring our
completamente
countries more closely
en la
together
paz desde la
to
fortaleza,
achieve a shared objective and do so
en la disuasión creíble y en la
This is not a
cooperación
one-way street.
estratégica.
Every partner
Guatemala
in this
cree
region
en un
has to do more
hemisferio
and invest more in
donde
your
el
security
crimen
as well.
organizado
We, like you,
y
want a
los
hemisphere
actores
of sovereign,
desestabilizadores
secure,
no
and
encuentren
prosperous nations.
ningún
We,
espacio
like you, want
para actuar
what another
y
great
menos
American
para
president,
prosperar. Muchas
Teddy
gracias.
Roosevelt, called the permanent peace on this hemisphere, and it will require action from all of us.
Thank you, Minister
our
Science.
schools used to
As a
teach
reminder
American
to our
school
partners,
children
please try to
about
limit your
our
remarks to
blessed
2 to 3
history.
minutes so we can stay on time.
Every child
Thank
in
you very
grade
much.
school grew up knowing
Secretary Rodriguez
the
of
remarkable
Honduras,
story
you have the
of
floor.
this country.
Good morning.
They knew that President
On behalf
James
of the
Monroe was
President
once
of
an orphan,
the state of Honduras,
that at a mere
and the
16
armed
years old,
forces,
he had to look after
we
his
would like to
siblings.
express our sincere gratitude
I've got an
for
almost
the
16-year-old
invitation
who
to
couldn't look after
participate
anything.
in this important conference.
It's remarkable.
This forum
Well, that orphan grew to be
reaffirms a
not just
reality
one of the
we
greatest
all
presidents, but
recognize:
one of our greatest
the
Americans.
fight against
After his
cartels
presidency, when
and
his wife died and he
transnational
became
organized
frail and
crime
ill with heart failure,
cannot be addressed
but he still
in
spoke about
isolation.
what he called our shared cause
It is a
of
hemispheric
liberty.
threat that
Still talked
requires
about the
joint
toils
response,
and the
permanent
perils
cooperation,
of our war
and a
for
shared
independence.
strategic vision.
James Monroe,
Honduras
our seventh
occupies
president, died
a
on
key
July 4th,
geographic
4th of July,
position in the
Independence
continent,
Day,
which has been exploited
1831.
by criminal organizations
50 years after
using our
1776.
territory as a corridor
What I like to
for
say
illicit
is,
activities.
here at the Department of War,
In
we're in the
light of this
1775
reality,
business.
the new government
Which is
has
when
made a
Americans
firm
took up arms
commitment to
before they even
strengthen
declared
its
independence.
operations
All
and
of you are also in the
actively contribute
1775
to
business.
regional security.
Without the force of arms,
Today, this
without our
morning,
militaries, we
we're
cannot
here
keep
to
our country
reaffirm our
That's my
commitment
responsibility,
to work
and
alongside
it is yours.
our allies, friends,
With Donald Trump
and
in the
neighbors.
Oval Office and
Through
with all of
regional
you here, we can
cooperation,
still realize
sharing
that
strategic
long-ago
information,
dream of James
and
Monroe
coordinating
in our time.
efforts to
We will
actively
make
confront criminal
the Americas
organizations
great
that threaten
again.
democracy.
Thank you and God bless you.
Honduras will continue to fulfill its responsibility with determination and with the firm's political will to maintain peace and security on the Americas. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Secretary Rodriguez. Ambassador Marks of Jamaica, you have the floor. Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. We now invite each of our partners to provide short remarks. Please deliver your remarks seated at your chair instead of coming up to the podium. Prime Minister Phillips of Guyana, you have the floor.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here this morning.
Thank you. I thank the government of the United States of America
and particularly
and
our
the
Prime Minister
Honorable
and
Secretary of War,
Defense, Dr.
Pete
Holness.
Exet,
But Mr.
for
Secretary,
convening
before I
this
get into
inaugural
remarks, I must
America's Counter-Cartel Conference
back in
and
December,
for the invitation
when I
extended to
met
Guyana.
what I now call your crack team,
Guyana and the United States share a strong and expanded strategic partnership built on mutual trust and robust defense and security cooperation through capacity building, joint exercises, and policy and technical engagements. Our countries have worked closely together to combat narco-trafficking and other forms of transnational crime. The transnational activities of cartels, gangs, and other criminal actors threaten regional peace and security. These networks undermine the rule of law, weaken institutions, and threaten the safety and economic well-being of our citizens. For countries like Guyana, located along important maritime and regional transit corridors, addressing narco-trafficking and narco-terrorism requires strong cooperation among our nations. These threats demand coordinated intelligence sharing, enhanced operational cooperation, and strengthened defense capabilities across the hemisphere, and to continue to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of every state. As our region continues to grow economically and strategically, it is also essential that we work together to protect critical infrastructure, strengthen national institutions, and enhance our resilience to evolving security threats. Through deeper cooperation and partnership, we can ensure that our hemisphere remains safe, secure, and a true zone of peace. Guyana welcomes the adoption of the Joint Security Declaration of this conference and looks forward to joining the coalition to combat narco-terrorism. The government of Guyana remains committed to being a reliable and active partner in advancing the security and stability of the Western Hemisphere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Lieutenant General Presti of Argentina, you have the floor.
Efforts by nation states cannot take place in a vacuum. We acknowledge that this must be a collaborative effort.
Señor Secretario de Guerra, señor General, autoridades aquí presentes, antes de comenzar, quiero expresar nuestro respeto por los militares de Estados Unidos de América que recientemente perdieron la vida en combate cumpliendo con su deber. Sirvieron a su país con honor. Argentina honra su sacrificio y acompaña a sus familias. Igualmente también con el accidente que ha tenido la Fuerza Aérea de Bolivia, un país hermano, nuestras condolencias. Vengo en nombre del presidente de la Nación Argentina, nuestro comandante en jefe de las Fuerzas Armadas, nuestro líder, Javier Milei, para reafirmar el compromiso de la República Argentina con la seguridad y la estabilidad de nuestro hemisferio. Los estados del continente enfrentamos amenazas de naturaleza similar, aunque en distinta intensidad, que afectan a nuestros ciudadanos, a nuestros bienes, a nuestros recursos estratégicos y a nuestras infraestructuras críticas. Frente a estos desafíos, la defensa constituye una función indispensable y central del Estado. La Argentina ocupa un lugar clave en el extremo sur de nuestro continente. Somos un eje natural de proyección hacia el Atlántico Sur y hacia la Antártida.
Thank you, Ambassador Marks.
Y un actor con incidencia directa en las cadenas de suministro globales a partir de nuestros recursos estratégicos y nuestra capacidad productiva. Esta posición nos sitúa como un nodo relevante dentro de la arquitectura de seguridad regional y seguridad global, con la responsabilidad de contribuir a la estabilidad del sistema americano.
Estratégica y sostenible.
El eje central de nuestra política de defensa es el desarrollo del capital humano y la incorporación inteligente de innovación tecnológica.
Anticipar riesgos emergentes.
Esa integración nos permite construir fuerzas armadas modernas, ágiles y preparadas para aportar estabilidad, previsibilidad y cooperación internacional efectiva en el ámbito regional.
Es interconectada y multidimensional, por lo cual demanda mayor interoperabilidad, intercambio oportuno de información y alianzas basadas en confianza y responsabilidad compartida. Panamá reafirma su compromiso de actuar frente a los desafíos comunes del hemisferio, respaldando las iniciativas que fortalezcan la cooperación regional y contribuyan a la seguridad, la estabilidad y el desarrollo sostenible de nuestras naciones. Les invito a que este foro sea un espacio de diálogo franco, intercambio de buenas prácticas y construcción de soluciones concretas. Con mucho respeto y un espíritu de colaboración, deseo que tengamos una jornada productiva y orientada a los mejores resultados. Muchísimas gracias.
And the Bahamas stands fully committed to that declaration.
Thank you, Minister.
Allow me to use this
Minister
occasion to
Ramirez of
reiterate that the
Paraguay,
military cooperation between the Bahamas and the United States must be based on the shared commitment to peace, sovereignty, and security, consistent with our existing bilateral agreements and with full respect for sovereignty and laws of each country, and with due regard to the international legal norms.
Organizing this
the Bahamas intends to work closely with the United States Department of War in expanding joint military cooperation, recognizing the shared responsibility for regional security and stability. Bahamas welcomes closer collaboration on military-to-military efforts regarding border security, counter-narcotics, interoperability,
and the leadership of the United States on this issue is quite
important. The disparity between the scale of our security responsibility and our resource capacity is significant.
Rule of law,
it is not sustainable.
And in God we
our vast maritime domain requires continuous aerial and maritime patrols. Our surveillance infrastructure requires sustained capital investment.
Conviction.
And our security
the fight against cartels and transnational organized crime is not only a security priority,
the concept of peace through strength,
but also an essential condition for development,
and if we are candid in
democratic stability, and the
for a small state like the
of our
Bahamas,
nation.
it is not about arsenal size.
Under the leadership of President Santiago Peña, Paraguay has adopted a comprehensive and strategic approach embodied in the 2023-2028 Security Plan, which strengthens the operation capacity of the state, modernize our institutions, and promote effective interagency coordination through the National Defense Council. The results are tangible. We have carried out large-scale operations such as Operation Escudo Guaraní, disrupting drug trafficking, logistic networks, seizing illicit drugs, weapons and assets, and finally weakening the criminal organization. At the same time, we have strengthened territorial control, modernized our surveillance systems, and reinforced the state's presence in vulnerable areas. Paraguay has also deepened its bilateral and regional cooperation, particularly with the United States. We approved yesterday in the Senate the SOFA agreement with the United States, and in the next week we have a law
and a track record of cooperation
restart our bilateral cooperation with the United States. But with our neighborhood, is very important also our cooperation.
The Americas either secures
and strategic partners recognizing that no nation can face alone threats that are transnational in nature.
And we invite every partner assembled here.
Coordination in intelligence sharing, joint operation, and institutional strategy has been key to achieving effective results. We also reaffirm that security and development
Thank you, Minister Monroe. Minister Marin of Belize,
combating
you have the
organized
floor.
crime requires not only operational fairness, but also investment in strong institutions, economic opportunities, and social cohesion.
Ministers, heads of
Paraguay remains committed to a hemispheric response granted in shared responsibility, mutual trust, and respect for sovereignty. Only through sustained strategy and collective action we will be able to protect our society and ensure a safer future for the Americas.
And the
Thank you so much.
transnational crime across the Western Hemisphere.
Thank you, Minister Ramirez. Minister Arroyo of Peru, you have the floor.
Central America and the Caribbean, we sit along key maritime and overland routes exploited by criminal networks.
Señor
These networks traffic narcotics,
Hexen,
weapons,
Secretario de Guerra de los Estados Unidos de América. Señor General Francis Donovan, comandante del Comando Sur de los Estados Unidos de América. Señora y señores ministros de Defensa de los diferentes países de América. Señoras y señores, miembros de diferentes delegaciones de los países de América. Damas y caballeros, tengan todos ustedes muy buenos días. Es un honor para mí dirigirme a todos ustedes y expresar que el Perú agradece la invitación de los Estados Unidos de América para participar en esta primera conferencia de las Américas sobre la lucha contra los cárteles. Mi país reconoce y valora esta importante iniciativa que contribuirá a reforzar la cooperación regional para afrontar de manera coordinada las amenazas actuales que comprometen la seguridad, la estabilidad y el desarrollo del hemisferio americano. El Perú prioriza la sólida relación que mantiene con los Estados Unidos en materia de seguridad y defensa, prioridad que día a día se fortalece. El Perú está firmemente comprometido con la lucha contra el crimen organizado transnacional, un fenómeno de naturaleza compleja y multidimensional. El narcotráfico, el narcoterrorismo, el tráfico ilícito de armas, la trata de personas, la minería ilegal y la ciberdelincuencia operan mediante estructuras que trascienden fronteras, utilizan tecnologías emergentes y buscan debilitar la institucionalidad democrática. Estas amenazas proyectan simultáneamente en los dominios terrestre, marítimo, aéreo y cibernético, lo que exige respuestas integrales y coordinadas. Para el Perú, la lucha contra el narcotráfico constituye una prioridad estratégica. Como uno de los principales productores mundiales de hoja de coca y cocaína, enfrentamos de manera directa el impacto de estas economías ilícitas sobre la seguridad pública, el medio ambiente y las poblaciones más vulnerables. Nuestra experiencia histórica ha demostrado además la estrecha vinculación entre el narcotráfico y el financiamiento del terrorismo.
Plenamente consciente de las amenazas emergentes que desafían la estabilidad
que la ciberdelincuencia constituye una amenaza transnacional que solo puede enfrentarse mediante una cooperación sostenida y mecanismos internacionales eficaces.
Reconocemos que el
Perú ha
crimen organizado
participado activamente en la negociación y suscripción de las convenciones de las Naciones Unidas contra la ciberdelincuencia, reafirmando su compromiso con la prevención, investigación y sanción de estas conductas, así como con el fortalecimiento de los mecanismos de cooperación internacional frente a las amenazas digitales emergentes. Frente a este entorno estratégico,
buscamos
la seguridad
establecer
hemisférica
mecanismos de confianza
exige
mutua
mayores
y
niveles
coordinación de acciones combinadas con nuestros
intercambio
vecinos
oportuno
y
de
con los Estados
información,
Unidos,
modernización de
alineándonos
capacidades
con
y
el
una
paradigma de que
cooperación
la
basada
seguridad
en la
de
confianza
un Estado
mutua y el
es
respeto a la soberanía de los
interdependiente
Estados. Para terminar, decirles
con la de sus
que el Perú
vecinos y sus aliados.
reafirma su compromiso con una
Nuestra
acción
posición geográfica
coordinada y
estratégica
solidaria que
como
permita
una
preservar la
síntesis
estabilidad
donde se integran
regional
los Andes
y
y la
garantizar
Amazonía,
un
nos
hemisferio
sitúa
más
en una
seguro y
encrucijada
próspero
crítica.
para nuestras naciones. Muchas gracias.
Podemos permitir que el crimen organizado transnacional nos utilice como un hub para hacer la distribución de insumos y sustancias ilegales, o podemos transformarlos en un hub soberano que distribuye información y seguridad para todo el hemisferio. Para alcanzar este objetivo, mi país está trabajando con inversión propia en el desarrollo de un sistema de vigilancia integral que integra datos satelitales, drones y radares militares. Esta es nuestra primera estrategia para permear, sellar las fronteras que el crimen ha explotado y fundamentalmente para controlar las zonas grises que se han constituido en nuestro territorio tras de 20 años de indolencia y desinstitucionalización. Entendemos que la defensa moderna exige un enfoque multidominio, ya que las amenazas actuales ejercen un control no solo del espacio físico, sino también en el virtual, en el cognitivo, que es el dominio cognitivo y virtual donde el crimen organizado transnacional vive una de sus batallas más peligrosas, afectando la mente de los pobladores locales para usarlos como escudos de protección y legitimidad social. Nuestra determinación es clara. Buscamos que la acción del Estado boliviano ataque los núcleos estratégicos del crimen organizado transnacional, reduciendo al máximo cualquier daño colateral. Sin embargo, para alcanzar nivel de precisión técnica, inteligencia, estrategia y superioridad decisional, que esta misión requiere y necesitamos de la cooperación activa de nuestros vecinos y aliados para mejorar nuestra capacidad operativa. Bolivia está lista para asumir su rol como eje de estabilidad en el corazón de Sudamérica, protegiendo nuestros recursos estratégicos y garantizando que la ley y la soberanía prevalezcan sobre el caos criminal.
Donations of equipment and other resources.
Thank you, Minister Salinas. Mr. Barros of Chile, you have the floor.
Leaving us at a critical disadvantage as we face off with sophisticated and well-financed narco-traffickers who move their goods northwards into your neighborhoods, onto your streets, into your homes, and bringing destruction to your youth.
Illegal immigration and many social diseases our countries are suffering
as the security anchor in the southern Caribbean.
Respectfully
we require assets that would equip us with the capability to disrupt
for us to see we have the state back again
and to protect our shared economic interests
in
this
conference
energy
and
sector.
this meeting, and we are getting together, we are joining because there's a great threat in cartels and other criminals.
Again,
why? Because they hurt our societies.
Underscore our commitment that we stand ready.
They create
our
weakness.
Personnel are highly trained.
They act against
aligns with yours.
That's a great issue. That's why
we require assets in the interim
against the
that
law,
would enhance our maritime domain awareness, as well as enable us to carry out targeted reinforcement
of the people.
That would serve
and our governments are forced to
immediate hemispheric benefits.
It's because the law of civilized nations we will join and work together to end the pandemic of the cartels and all the criminal
to the expectations
actions are associated to them. The great difference between them and us,
I thank you,
is that this alliance is against them, and we will fight them. And
thank you, Minister Sturge. At this time, Secretary Hegseth invites all heads of delegation to join him at the table for the signing of the Joint Security Declaration.
With the rule of law. And we will be tough, we will fight, we will be in a war, because if we succeed, but we will, rather than distract the cartels, impose the rule of law to come back again to our territories. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barros. Minister Zamora of Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Me circunscribo a las palabras de bienvenida y agradecimiento que han dicho mis colegas. Agradecemos que la doctrina de los Estados Unidos de seguridad y defensa del año 2026 priorice este continente, porque, don Pete, llega usted en el momento en que las Américas más necesita el apoyo de los Estados Unidos. Comanda usted hoy, como en el pasado, el coronel Costa comandó el 7º de Caballería, apoyando a las democracias del continente en el momento en que más lo necesitan. Si tuviéramos que definir la situación de las Américas antes de este esfuerzo de los Estados Unidos, tenemos que definirlas como democracias que están comprometidas ante el poder del narcotráfico y los carteles. Hoy lo que nos ofrece los Estados Unidos es trabajar juntos para que los valores compartidos de democracia y los valores cívicos que compartimos con el pueblo y el gobierno de los Estados Unidos se hagan una realidad en todo el continente. Le hablo desde un país, Costa Rica, en el que hay más estadounidenses en mi país que costarricenses en los Estados Unidos. Y eso nos hace comprender la hermandad entre dos pueblos, como los pueblos latinoamericanos y americanos aquí presentes. Lo primero fue que mi país entendió que la soberanía no puede ser una frontera que los narcotraficantes no respetan, pero los esfuerzos de la justicia sí. Entonces, llevamos a cabo un tratado de patrullaje conjunto con los Estados Unidos que da autoridad de policía, autoridad jurisdiccional a los navíos
We will now have a 10-minute break. Breakout sessions will begin promptly at 11:15. Secretary Hegseth will first host Caribbean nations on the first floor in room 136. Central American and South American nations will begin with counter-narcotics and cyber breakout discussions.
Ninguna exportación que llegue a los Estados Unidos desde Costa Rica no sea escaneada. Es decir, evitemos que el narcotráfico use las rutas de comercio para traer droga a los Estados Unidos. Y ese esfuerzo conjunto que estamos haciendo con el Comando Sur me parece que es emblemático y en línea justamente de construir esta cooperación y este trabajo conjunto. Concluyo, señor secretario de Guerra, mencionando que también está el Tratado de San José, que nos da un marco legal también para incrementar estas cooperaciones y estos trabajos conjuntos en materia de seguridad. Costa Rica va a proponer su nombre porque con el liderazgo de los Estados Unidos, nuestros países deben definir también una vicepresidencia operativa. Y nosotros consideraríamos un honor ocupar esta vicepresidencia si así este foro lo define. Muchas gracias, señor secretario.
Thank you, Minister Zamora. General Onofre of the Dominican Republic, you have the floor.
Muy buenos días, señor secretario Hetze, general Donovan, homólogos y jefes de delegaciones del hemisferio, señoras y señores. Es un alto honor para la República Dominicana participar en esta Conferencia de las Américas contra los carteles, aquí en la sede del Comando Sur de Estados Unidos, espacio que reafirma nuestro compromiso común con la seguridad y la estabilidad del hemisferio. Nuestro país reconoce que para avanzar en la paz es imprescindible asegurar nuestras patrias y nuestras fronteras. No puede haber desarrollo sostenible sin seguridad. No puede haber prosperidad sin estabilidad. En nuestra condición de nación caribeña, ubicada en una posición geoestratégica clave, asumimos con responsabilidad el desafío de enfrentar el narcotráfico, el narcoterrorismo, el crimen organizado transnacional y las amenazas emergentes que impactan directamente a nuestras sociedades. Respaldamos firmemente esta declaración conjunta de seguridad. orientada a ampliar la cooperación multilateral y bilateral, fortalecer los esfuerzos integrales de nuestros gobiernos en materia de seguridad fronteriza, proteger infraestructuras críticas y consolidar nuestras capacidades en ciberdefensa. Estos desafíos no reconocen fronteras, por tanto, nuestra respuesta debe ser en conjunto como región. Creemos en la promoción de la paz a través de la fuerza legítima del Estado y en la cooperación estratégica entre naciones aliadas. Unirnos en una coalición hemisférica contra el narcoterrorismo y otras amenazas compartidas no es solo una opción, es una necesidad histórica. La República Dominicana reafirma su firme compromiso con la estabilidad, la democracia y el desarrollo de la región. Estamos listos para alinear prioridades, compartir buenas prácticas y explorar nuevas oportunidades de colaboración que nos permitan anticipar riesgos, disuadir amenazas y proteger a nuestros ciudadanos. Juntos, con voluntad política y acción coordinada, fortaleceremos la seguridad del hemisferio occidental y construiremos un futuro más próspero y más seguro para nuestras naciones. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, General Onofre. Minister Lofredo of Ecuador, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. I am here today representing the government of the Republic of Ecuador. I stand before this multilateral forum not only as a Minister of Defense, but as the spokesman for a nation that has decided with absolute firmness and political will to confront the greatest threat of our contemporary history, transnational narcoterrorism. We are at a turning point. The decisions we make at this conference will directly impact the security and stability of our future generations. Historically, our nations have shared the values of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. Today, those values demand a common strategic response from us. On the basis of this principle, our national defense policy aligns with the United States National Defense Strategy. Ecuador recognizes that the border security is an essential component of national and hemispheric security. The threats we face have mutated. We are not dealing with dispersed criminal networks, but with destabilizing structures with transnational scope and links that erode democratic institutions. Narco-terrorist organizations not only traffic drugs, they challenge the legitimate authority of the state and affect the freedom and prosperity of our citizens. The security of our hemisphere is indivisible. Every nation that strengthens its capacities contributes to the regional stability. In this context, Ecuador's commitment to its own security also constitutes an important contribution to the security of the Americas. During the last few years, Ecuador has ceased to be merely a transit country and has become one of the main departure points for drug trafficking to international markets. This evolution of criminal activity has generated a wave of unprecedented violence in our recent history. In addition to this, there exists a structural factor that cannot be ignored. The expansion of illicit crops in the region and the modernization of production and distribution chains. As long as these dynamics persist, the pressure on our territories will continue, confirming that we face a challenge that transcends borders and demands effective cooperation among states. To address this, our government made a clear decision to restore the authority of the state without any ambiguity. Through the declaration of an internal armed conflict, our armed forces and national police, acting in a coordinated manner, are decisively confronting these groups, reaffirming the state's control over its territory and restoring the principle of authority. As the Ecuadorian government, we propose to strengthen cooperation on 3 specific fronts: reinforcing intelligence and interoperability capacities, modernizing border and port control using advanced technology, as well as a sustained support scheme that consolidates our institutional capacities in the long term. We need to keep in mind that it's not just about combating illicit shipments. It's about protecting our societies, our economies, and our future. Ecuador is willing to do its part. We hope to consolidate together with you, with all of you sitting at this table, a coordinated effort that ensures organized crime has no place in the Western Hemisphere. The effectiveness of that effort will depend on our ability to consolidate it by assuming real co-responsibility and sustaining it over time with the firmness and determination that this threat demands. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Lafredo. Minister Marino of El Salvador, you have the floor.
Señor Secretario de Guerra Pete Hegseth, señor General Donovan, comandante del Comando Sur, miembros del staff de los Estados Unidos, resto de miembros de los diferentes países que están acá representados, tengan buenos días. Primero, es para nosotros como salvadoreños un honor el haber sido seleccionados para integrar este selecto grupo de países que han mostrado el interés de generar un cambio en la seguridad hemisférica. Quiero traer a este punto uno de los pensamientos en los cuales nuestro presidente Nayib Bukele se ha basado para hacer la transformación que está realizando en El Salvador. Y es que él dice que quien perdona al lobo sacrifica a las ovejas. Y eso es lo que estaba sucediendo en nuestro país, que las ONGs, estas organizaciones de derechos humanos, siempre decían que había que proteger a los niños, a los delincuentes. Y obviamente dejaba en manos de la delincuencia a la población honrada. El señor presidente, en contra de muchas opiniones internacionales inclusive, tomó la decisión de hacer uso de la Fuerza Armada para combatir la amenaza mayor que teníamos en ese momento, que era las maras y pandillas. Y nos dio la orden de integrarnos a la Policía Nacional Civil para resolver ese problema. En un corto tiempo transformó nuestro presidente Bukele a El Salvador de ser la capital del homicidio, de ser el país más peligroso del mundo, a convertirse en el país más seguro del hemisferio occidental. Una de las líneas de operaciones del señor presidente Nayib Bukele desde un principio, cuando pusimos en ejecución el Plan Control Territorial, fue la lucha contra el narcotráfico. Y cuando otros países aún no comenzaban a hacer ese trabajo, nosotros los salvadoreños, con una marina pequeña, con capacidades no tan bondadosas como la de otros países, salíamos hasta 1000 millas a hacer sendas incautaciones de droga. Y creo que eso demuestra la voluntad de nuestro presidente y demuestra que la teoría llevada a la práctica da resultados. Recientemente tuvimos uno de los logros mayores en la lucha contra el narcotráfico, que fue la incautación de un buque
Jim.
Should we put up the...
Vinny, is the boom mic in yet?
Hello, hello, hello. Did you get this? Hello, hello, hello.
Let's see if it fits here. Cover the sheet. No. Like to cover it. Like it.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How is it? Good? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check. 1, 4, 5. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check.
Vinny, okay, good.
Ask Mary if he wants to use it. Sure. Actually, to make it disappear.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Please, I'd like to introduce Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, to provide an update on Operation Roaring Lion. He'll take your questions afterwards. Please remember to state your name and news outlet. Thank you.
Good morning. The radical Islamist regime in Tehran continues to fire missiles and drones indiscriminately across our region. Their strikes are not just targeted at Israel, they are targeting their neighbors, the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, Iraq, Jordan. Just this morning, Azerbaijan, one drone struck an airport terminal, another fell beside a school. And beyond their immediate neighbors, other UN member states have been targeted. Earlier this week, Cyprus, a member of the EU, was attacked. Yesterday, an Iranian missile crossed the region and was intercepted above Turkey, a NATO member, before being shot down. More than 780 missiles fired. More than 1,600 drones launched. 6 days, 13 countries. Iran has struck more Arab countries than Israel has in its entire existence. This is a regime going down and trying to set the entire region on fire as it falls. It will not work. To the people of Israel, to our neighbors in the region, and to the Iranian people who are paying a price for this regime's recklessness, be patient. We are advancing. It is only a matter of time before the rocket fire is minimized and their capabilities are dismantled. Every day, their capabilities shrink. Every hour, we, together with the US, degrade, destroy, and dismantle their launch sites and stockpiles. The volume of missiles they are firing is already falling, and we are only 6 days in. They are getting weaker and weaker. As they lash out in desperation, let us be absolutely clear about what we are witnessing. In one side, a radical Islamist terrorist regime firing at civilian population centers. On the other side, Israel and the US striking military infrastructure with precision. We target missile launchers, we target command centers, we target terror. We do not target civilians. They do. That is the main difference. Yet from this very podium, the Iranian regime's representative stood here and tried to sell you fairy tales. He said, and allow me to quote him directly, "We target only military objectives." That's what he said. We do not target civilians. We do not target the interests of neighboring states. Mr. Iravani, that is not just inaccurate, it is a deliberate lie. Look at the past 5 days. In the UAE, missiles hit Dubai and Abu Dhabi airports. In Bahrain, drones struck hotels and homes in Manama. In Kuwait, civilian sites were hit. And in Israel, ballistic missiles tore into neighborhoods. Children were killed. Iranian fire is all over. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iraq, and now Azerbaijan. Home, hotels, airports. That is not military targeting. That is indiscriminate aggression. You know, sometimes in times like these, people can get overwhelmed by the reports, by the headlines. A few are even asking, was the threat really all that serious? So let me make it clear. This is what we are facing. This is the engine and the wing of an Iranian Shahed 136 attack drone acquired by the watchdog United Against Nuclear Iran. Not a prop, not a toy, a weapon. Look at the wing. Built to travel thousands of miles across borders. It can reach cities in Israel, in Europe, and in a few months, even the US, carrying more than 100 pounds of explosives. Now imagine it aimed at your house, at your living room, at your child's bedroom. This is the terror we are facing. When we say missiles and drones, it can sound so distant. It is not distant. That is why we are acting. You do not wait for a regime that fires at airports, hotels, and homes to place nuclear warheads on its ballistic missiles. You do not gamble with your survival. We are only 6 days into this operation, and we have seen so many drones, so many missiles. But everything is severely degraded. This is what happens when the US and Israel act together. An extraordinary combination of unmatched power exercised with precision and resolve. A radical Islamist regime that believed it could intimidate the region with all those weapons is discovering otherwise. It cannot. And this effort is far from over. I want to remind you, our objectives are clear. No nuclear weapon, no ballistic missile program, no naval threat, no terror proxies operating across the region. We will dismantle them. We will finish this job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's Pamela Falk from U.S. News and World Report. How worried is Israel about the threats to global energy and oil supplies, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz? Thank you.
Well, I think we all have to pay attention to what the Iranians are trying to do. They use those drones, and we have to admit, they produced thousands of drones and ballistic missiles in order to affect world economy. You know, when we look at the markets, we see that they are failing. But I think President Trump was very clear about it, that the U.S., with the support of other countries, will ensure that the straits will be open. And as I said earlier, we need to be patient. Give us a few more days. You know, today when the people of Iran are looking at the skies, they see our aircrafts. They see the American aircraft. Give us a few more days. It will be much, much harder for the Iranian to disrupt the vessels coming through the Strait of Hormuz.
Thank you. Maria.
Iran International. Reports indicates that Mojtaba Khamenei is going to be the next leader of Iran. Do you have any opinion on that? And also you said Iran is already reducing its ballistic missiles and attacks and losing its basically power in the war. Do you think that's a tactic, or it's really the Islamic Republic not having enough missiles to fire anymore?
So I will start with the second part. It's not a tactic, it's reality. You know, the hundreds of attacks against the missile launchers, against the infrastructure of terror, we see the results. So if you know, you saw at the beginning of the war around 100 missiles landing in Israel, today you're talking about maybe 20. So I'm sure we will see that going to that direction, not because they decided to, because they don't have the ability to do that. Regarding the name you mentioned, you know, we will find and hunt down whoever is plotting against Israel. I don't care what will be his name, who was his father, we will hunt him down. And I think they know it in the leadership in Iran today.
Mr. Ambassador, so this morning Israel told the people of the Dahya in Beirut to leave the section, and so what's the object there? Secondly, at the same time, another Iranian proxy, the Houthis, are sitting quiet. How do you make? What do you think of the difference there?
Well, first, you know, I addressed the issue of Lebanon yesterday, and we said very clearly to the Lebanese government that they have to take action against Hezbollah. I have to give the credit for what they are saying. They have issued very strong, bold statements, but they have to take action against Hezbollah. And I think our message is very clear. We will find the operatives of Hezbollah and the Iranian regime representatives in Lebanon, and we will eliminate them. We are trying to minimize civilian casualties. That's why we give the heads up to civilians to move away from the facilities of Hezbollah in the region. Regarding your second question, you know, we have no conflict with many of the countries or militias in the region. But if Israel will be attacked, we will use all of our power to defend ourselves.
Yeah, Mr. Ambassador, what case would you make to the American people who are skeptical of this war that it's beneficial to America in the long term? I know Trump was almost assassinated by the Iranian regime. What other argument would you make to the American people why it's worth us intervening?
I think they should look at the actions of the regime in the last 47 years and analyze it. What they said, what they did, the attacks against the U.S. military compounds in Lebanon, the attacks against President Trump that you mentioned, and understand that it has nothing to do with what the U.S. will do or will not do. It's pure hate. There is no border between the U.S. and Iran. There is no conflict. But still you will see the Iranian regime chanting against the American people. It's radicalism, hate. You have to confront it. You can delay it, but at the end of the day, it will come to your shores.
We have time for just 2 questions. Linda.
Ambassador Linda Fasulo, NPR. My question has to do with Hamas as a proxy. Are there any indications that Hamas plans anything or getting involved? And secondly, have any of the Gulf states been in touch with Israel about the war?
So regarding the second question, I will not elaborate, but we share our know-how and intelligence with whoever wants that support. And today, when you see what's happened in the streets of Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Manama, and other cities in the Gulf, very similar to what we are facing in Israel. So we share the same enemy as we speak. Your first question was about Hamas. I don't think Hamas has the capabilities today to attack Israel. So, and we fought for 2 years. We degraded their capabilities. It would be a grave mistake to start something with Israel today. I think they know it. But even if they will try to, their capabilities are minimized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. This war has now involved at least 10 other countries, and calls have been escalating for an end to the conflict and diplomatic negotiations to resume, to end it. Does Israel support diplomatic efforts to bring this war to an end?
I think diplomacy will come into action. Not yet. Not yet. We have to finish the job. We have to dismantle the machine of terror that they built for so many years. It will not last forever. It will not be months. It will be weeks or days. But we need to continue. We need to continue to hammer, to dismantle the capabilities, and then, to use diplomacy to ensure that they are not doing the same. Because if the regime will continue, it's only a matter of years until we're going to be in the same place talking about another attack against the regime. So we have to build a stronger mechanism. We are all familiar with the JCPOA, which failed, and with the negotiations. So we're going to have to install real effective mechanisms that will prevent Iran from becoming a threat. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Final question,
Ambassador Adla Massoud, The National. With regards to Lebanon, is Israel planning a ground offensive like in 1982?
So, we have no desire to engage in any military operation. But when we see that Hezbollah is sending rockets into Israel from Lebanon, saying they want to avenge the death of Ayatollah Khamenei, and the Lebanese government is not capable of blocking them, then we have to step in. So we will do whatever is necessary from the air, from the ground, from the sea, but we have no desire to do that. And I think it's still not too late. I think the Lebanese government can still stop the escalation, put more pressure on Hezbollah, and tell them, don't drag Lebanon into it. If you want to go fight against Israel, don't use Lebanon as a launching pad against Israel. So it's not too late, but we are. We also saw the signs of Hezbollah preparing for escalation. So we put more troops on the border to prevent any invasion, especially after October 7th. So yes, we have more presence on the northern border today, and we take positions in order to make sure that we will not be caught by surprise. Thank you very much. They will stay here for a few minutes. But you can imagine the noise, Pamela, when you hear it flying over your house. It's very noisy. What? Yes. Yeah.
Ambassador, tell me a little bit more about this, and why does something like this pose a threat to the American people? How close was Iran to being able to launch missiles straight to the United States?
So here we don't see a missile, we see a drone.
Yeah.
Very basic, you know, the engine is like an engine of a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You put the wings, and you put the explosives. It can carry about 110 pounds.
Yeah.
And imagine it will fly to your hometown.
Wow.
So today it can actually reach any city in Israel.
Okay.
It can reach almost any city in Europe.
Okay.
So if they can add more fuel into that, basically it will reach the shores of the US. And
So-
not only drones, it costs a few $1,000s to put it together.
Yeah.
And they produce thousands of them.
Wow.
The ballistic missile, it's more complicated.
Yeah.
They already launched ballistic missiles to Cyprus,
Yeah.
to Turkey. And if you will allow them, they will be able to do it also to the US.
Wow. So how much would you say this war is about protecting the West versus liberating Iran? Obviously, we know women there have been oppressed for decades. We know gays are oppressed there. How much, what's the balance in your vision?
No, for 47 years, the Iranian people were oppressed. I think now there's an opening for them. You know, it came because of the aggression of Iran. We have to face it. Once they started to move forward with the nuclear ambitions, they built the ballistic missile. The last thing they had to do is actually to assemble the nuclear warhead into the ballistic missile. And I want to thank President Trump for saying enough is enough.
Yeah.
We are not waiting for that moment to happen.
Yeah.
We are stopping them now. And I think now there's an opening for the people of Iran to step up, to be strong and brave and lead.
Is it possible, like actually possible, that Iran could be a democracy in the near future? Do you believe that?
Well, I don't want to give you headlines here.
Yeah.
I think Iran can be in a much better place.
Okay.
Without the regime.
Yeah.
They deserve better.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about the funding. When you build ballistic missiles and the drones, they spend billions of dollars. Today they don't have electricity in Iran.
Yeah.
The hospitals are in bad shape. So the regime took the funds of the Iranian people, put it into the drones and ballistic missiles, the nuclear program. Imagine what they can do if they actually put it